Chapter 193. Since Huang Bingzhen's soul was close to the material plane, Luo Nan's heavily chained crow had to be close to Huang Bingzhen in order to control him. Therefore, he was unable to hide it, allowing Cat Eyes to see it. At this moment, Cat Eyes cast a somewhat odd gaze. On one hand, it was Luo Nan's act of finishing off. On the other hand, it was the chains themselves. No matter what expression Cat Eyes had, Luo Nan knew what he was doing. The moment the heavily chained crow struck, not only did the mass of soul smoke not shatter, it strangely congealed together. At this time, the powerful enemy that he had yet to meet continued to radiate a powerful mental attack. Within the area of the luxury room, the mental plane was completely covered by a powerful storm. Any power that wanted to clash against it would be utterly defeated in an instant. The problem was who would want to clash against it. Luo Nan had fought against the human-faced arachnid and Elder Mo Luan of the Blood Flame Order. They had all fought on the mental plane before. They possessed ample experience, and he knew where his advantage lay. Whether it was the format of My Heart's a Prison, or the rhythm of soul breathing, they were all self-formed structures. They were unaffected by external objects. Even though the storm howled on the mental plane, Luo Nan's heavily chained crow only trembled a few times. He did not seize power, occupy space, or forcefully block. Instead, he firmly established the structure. The structure of Luo Nan's body and soul, from the inside to the outside, was like this. Aside from his lackluster outer shell, there was certainly pressure. The stimulation of the nervous system had an effect on his skin, flesh, and internal organs. But it was nothing compared to the time he was ruthlessly tricked by the Wraith sign yesterday. He coughed a few times and stabilized his breathing. The wisp of Huang Bingzhen's remnant soul, at the front of the chains, was affected by the chain's format. It stabilized as well. A portion of the faint smoke that was scattered all around even flowed back. It more or less recovered a bit of its outline. Then the chains pressed down, forcing the soul smoke back into Huang Bingzhen's body. The soul and flesh were finally united, but only the heavens knew if there were any residual effects. TSK. The pressure on Cat Eyes suddenly decreased, and her senses became much sharper. She took in Luo Nan's series of movements. Even though she felt awkward in her heart, she could not help but exclaim in admiration. This is the soul-subduing technique. This dance is quite good. Huang Bingzhen was not necessarily worth saving. Luo Nan did not have a good impression of this person. The reason why he made a move was because he did not want to see Huang Bingzhen die. How could a living person die in such a manner? In addition, it was as if the flame was being pulled out. He wanted to show his enemy that the mental storm was useless against him. And it was useless against the people he wanted to protect. Cat Eyes was like this. Huang Bingzhen, who was 90% dead, was also like this. Luo Nan's declaration did have an effect. When Huang heard Luo Nan's voice, Luo Nan. Afterwards, there was an occasional resurgence. The other side should be constantly probing Luo Nan's foundation, trying to break through this kind of situation. But in the end, they returned without success. The Shan, the Luonan Chen. The other side did not conceal their target at all. A high-powered active radar, similar to Cat Eyes, was stationed within the luxurious room the entire time. They vowed to see through Luo Nan. Huang to Luo a Tian Shan to Tian. No, the mental plane. Luo Nan's methods on the mental plane were indeed inconceivable. But in the end, they were not on the material plane. Aside from ability users, it was very difficult for normal people to see them. They were on a completely different rhythm. Guoju, who had been clamoring to clear the area, naturally refuted Cat Eyes when she yelled murderer. He claimed that Cat Eyes was making irresponsible remarks. What he said was true in a sense, but unfortunately it was meaningless. At this moment, Xue Weiluan simply couldn't be bothered to pay attention to them. What he truly cared about was Cat Eyes' warning, as well as that nasal sound filled with ill intent. Cat Eyes and Luo Nan's behavior during this time grew more and more bizarre. They appeared to be a bit neurotic. However, Xue Weiluan had some relevant knowledge. He knew that this kind of certified expert was on a different level from ordinary people. Out of consideration for the safety of the people involved, Xue Weiluan actively deployed manpower and set up a cordon. Of course, He did not forget to ask the technicians to look for the source of the nasal sound. Seeing Shui Weiluan's attention shift, Guoju didn't appear to be overly excited, but he was actually secretly relieved. To him, whether the situation was in a stalemate or how it would change was not the main point. What was truly important was the robots that were operating according to the program. The 3 multifunctional robots in the room had already reached the end of the transportation work. The last human body, which was Huang Bingjin, was also lifted onto a stretcher. They drove their metal bodies out of the room in an orderly fashion. The people present were already disinclined to pay attention to the 3 bothersome robots. In any case, the scene had already been destroyed to the point of no return. Please continue to the next page if this chapter is not finished. However, it didn't matter. Guoju's heart was thumping wildly. His peripheral vision had always rested on the body of the robot at the very front. He watched as it opened up a path in front of him, guiding the stretcher, and slowly driving it out the door. His heart finally let out a long sigh of relief. He had passed. His relief didn't even last for half a second. In the next moment, the short and stumpy metal robot was struck head-on by an enormous force. Its 100-kilogram body flew back with a rumble and fiercely collided with its companion behind it. The 3 robots were like dominoes. They collided one after another, flew back, and fell in disorder. Their operating systems were a complete mess. They could only struggle on the ground, unable to get up no matter how hard they tried. The most miserable one was the stretcher on the robot in the middle. The entire module was bounced away. Huang Bingjin, who was on the stretcher, was like a duck that had its feathers removed. He flew into the air and fell in a free fall, landing solidly on the ground. The stretcher module stayed in the air for a bit longer. When it fell, it just so happened to slap Huang Bingjin's face. After the muffled sound, there was actually a groan. He's alive? Even though such an unforeseen event had suddenly occurred, Cat Eyes could not help but be distracted for a moment. Her gaze swept over the naked duck on the ground, and she gasped in admiration at Luo Nan's godly skills once more. Luo Nan's attainments in soul studies were enough to make an authoritative figure, like Mr. Bai cast sidelong glances at him, with just this one move. Sure enough, this fellow was a hidden boss. Who knew how many good things were hidden in his stomach? Soon, Cat Eyes had to recollect her mind. This was because at this very moment, someone slowly walked in through the suddenly emptied door. Under the dim lighting, it was a dazzling white. The person who came wore a large snow-white robe. It was completely incompatible with the scene of real life. It was like the attire of a priest or a priest that would only appear in religious places. Compared to the standard of the robe, the color was truly excessive. Even under the disorderly lighting of the room, the robe seemed to be able to completely reflect all the colors of light, leaving only a dazzling and pure white. Guoju, who was not too far away from the door, had his heart about to jump out of his chest due to the robot being sent flying and damaged. But at this time, he suddenly thought of a group of people when he saw this dazzling white. His beating heart instantly got stuck in his throat, choking him to the point where he nearly suffocated. There's still one more chapter before dawn. Friends, you can watch it tomorrow morning. Chapter 194. No. They shouldn't know me. Chief Guo wanted to control his nervousness and remain calm as much as possible. If possible, he wanted to turn his head away and not look. But if that was the case, it would be really suspicious. He could only pretend to be surprised. Perhaps he could mix in a little anger? However, the shining white in his eyes was the source of the fear that could not be erased. He tried his best to hold on for a second and dispelled all other thoughts. He could only look over there in trepidation and accept the corresponding information stiffly. Chief Guo saw the tall and burly figure wrapped in a white robe. A little higher, it was a Western-style facial contour. It was deep and clear, and his skin was a healthy bronze color. These were not very recognizable. However, when Chief Guo's gaze stopped on the side of the person's head and saw the bright red flesh where the ear should have been, his eyes seemed to have been pricked by a sharp needle, and his entire body shrank. Even though he only saw one side, Chief Guo knew very well that the other side was definitely the same. The protection of truth. Oh no, what the hell? Chief Gua could no longer hold it in. He turned his gaze away to avoid further stimulation. But it was meaningless. At this moment, his legs and stomach were spinning, and he felt a cool breeze blowing over his neck. In the blink of an eye, it turned into fire, burning his skin and flesh. Chief Gua shrank back and pretended not to see the person. However, Xue Weiluan could not do that. This guy who had suddenly appeared and was dressed in strange clothes was suspicious, no matter how he looked at it. At the very least, he had to explain how he had walked into the defense circle set up by the special police and appeared in the door. Xue Weiluan placed his hand on the edge of the weapon cabin. Just as he was about to ask, the sound of bodies falling to the ground came from outside. The fully armed special police officers in exoskeleton armor fell almost at the same time. At this moment, Xue Weiluan's reaction was not slow. He instantly pulled out his gun and opened fire. The electromagnetic hand cannon specially prepared for the special police officers fired a fatal bullet. However, in the end, it only made a big hole in the door frame. The deflection angle was so big that it was beyond common sense. Xue Weiluan knew what was going on. The moment he pulled the trigger, his head was pierced by the invisible bullet first. The violent shock made him lose control of his body. He tried to turn it around. He staggered forward, but in the end he sat on the ground softly. It would be difficult for him to get up in a short period of time. All of the attacks were on the invisible and traceless spiritual level. In the face of an expert with mortal strength, ordinary people were really powerless. In just 2 seconds, the person finished clearing the area and walked in slowly. Luo Nan saw that this person's pupils were a deep gray. He gave off a feeling of solitude and coldness, but the violent methods he displayed added an extremely powerful tension and uncertainty. Of course, Luo Nan had also noticed that both of his ears were missing. With such an image and such tyrannical strength, he couldn't be a nameless figure, right? It was at this moment that Cat Eyes saw the appearance of the incoming person. She groaned in the encrypted channel. "We're in big trouble, child." "Child? Order of Justice?" "That's right, the Ears of Truth, a fanatic of the Order of Justice." Luo Nan's eyes weren't blind. That Chief Gua is definitely related to the Order of Justice. Since he's from the same family, what's with that expression? Humph. The secular faction bumped into the truth faction. The shallow believer bumped into the fanatic believer. The replacer bumped into the executioner. It's already not bad that he's not crying for his mother. Just like all large organizations, the Order of Justice was unable to avoid internal disputes. This was especially true for a cult like theirs, which focused on the worship of holy objects and beliefs. Without the suppression of a powerful god, it was easier for things to go wrong. The Order of Justice's holy object was the distinctly black and white scales of truth. Within the order, the secular faction and the truth faction were like this scale. One was black and the other was white. They were separated on 2 sides. The 2 sides were just as their names implied. One leaned more toward the chaotic secular world, while the other leaned more toward the pure truth. The truth faction was dissatisfied with the secular faction's extraordinary actions in the sacred replacement. They believed that using the secular world's money, women, and turbid desires to replace the supernatural powers bestowed by the truth was a serious blasphemy. The secular faction snorted at the truth faction's harsh doctrines that were far from reality. At some point in time, the church's truth faction members began the purification project. They punished those who had gone too far during the deity substitution. Later on, the enmity between the 2 factions gradually accumulated. The so-called forms of punishment became more and more cruel. Quite a few truth executioners were born from this. Child was one of the most famous ones. His strength wasn't necessarily the strongest, but his habitual punishment of the mirror image of truth made people's expressions change. The basic concept was roughly this. Whatever ability one obtained through the secular replacement, one would die under the circumstances created by that ability. Luo Nan understood a bit. It was no wonder that Child still didn't care about Huang Bingzhen's life, even though he already had the absolute advantage. Now it seemed that he simply wanted Huang Bingzhen to die from the destruction of his soul. To the truth faction, There was nothing more disgusting than the fact that a person like Huang Bingjin was alive in this world. The problem was that Child's intentions had been destroyed by Luo Nan. Child didn't immediately come looking for trouble with Luo Nan. According to the duties of the purification project, he still had a target that needed to be solved. Not far away from Child, Director Gui strove to maintain a bit of calmness, but it was useless. His entire body was trembling from head to toe. This was because he knew that the tall man standing behind him could take his life with a single breath, if he really wanted to. Child walked to Director Gui's side and sized him up a few times. He opened and closed his mouth. His voice was deep and resonant. It was as if it could penetrate the eardrums of his ears. You don't need to worry for the time being. Using the price of the secular world to exchange for the achievement of the secular world still hasn't deviated from the original intention of the substitution. But who gave you the right to participate in the process of blasphemy against the truth? Director Gui opened his mouth to speak, but he couldn't find a suitable reason no matter what. He didn't even have the courage to turn his head. His face grew paler and paler, nearly transparent. Despair seeped out from within. The other people in the room were dumbfounded for a time. No one would have thought that Child would be this terrifying in Director Gui's eyes. It was easy to imagine the reputation and prestige of this executioner within the order of justice. Things don't seem too good. Chapter 195. Cat Eyes must have forgotten that she had been praising Luo Nan for using this standing posture. As for the question, Luo Nan knew the answer. Luo Nan's gaze first swept over Shui Weiluan, who was sitting on the ground. He confirmed that Uncle Shui had only suffered an attack on the mental plane, and that he was not in mortal danger. Luo Nan let out a secret sigh of relief. Then his gaze fell upon the 3 scrapped robots. He pondered whether or not the special storage device was still in good condition. The faith product inside was specially designed for people like Huang Bingda and Guiju. It was also the root cause of tonight's situation. The unconscious Huang Bingjin was blessed. The conscious Guiju was a complete tragedy. Guiju's body was shaking like a sieve. His gaze was stiff as he looked forward. He would answer whatever Child asked him. He could not even think about whether he could save his life or not. Child's voice was like a clenched fist, squeezing everything out of his brain. As for what would be left in the end, perhaps only truth would know. Thanks to Guiju, Fairchild's attention was still on the other side. Luo Nan and Cat Eyes had a buffer. Cat Eyes shouted in the encrypted channel, "Where are the people behind us?" The encrypted channel began to flood. A fellow called Red Fox, who should have been behind Cat Eyes, arrived at the scene. He was already beginning to beat a retreat. "Fairchild? I'm just going to die. It's useless even if Kitty is here. Anyone else going to die?" Bamboo Pole, who had worked with them before, was also in the sequence. Fox plus Cat, X2 is also wasted. You guys are still alive. That message is truly shocking. There was also a fellow called Papercut who revealed some actual information. I personally saw the earless man in action last time. He's a master who went against the metal storm. His shield of truth is simply a bug. Are you guys sure you're still alive? Bamboo Pole concluded. Let's outsmart him. Let's kneel first. This brother is quite skilled in killing the order of justice. He Wayne sent over more detailed information at this time. Fairchild is indeed an all-rounder ability user, but his strength lies in the power of faith. He is one of the few who can draw upon the holy power of the scales of truth to form the shield of truth. He is an unstoppable fanatic for at least 90 minutes. In terms of defense, he is already at the level of a mortal. Cat Eye's eyes twitched when she saw this. Hey, reading the information is useless. Why don't you tell us how to deal with it? All members who have entered the operation but have not arrived at the scene of the incident, please turn to the Haipu Hotel on the neighboring Yulon Street. What do you mean? He Wayne replied calmly. Fairchild has a tendency to go berserk when carrying out the purification project. None of the personnel currently deployed can make an enemy of him. It will only cause unnecessary stimulation. Therefore, they had to regroup and avoid adding fuel to the fire. I've already reported this to the association. The reinforcements and negotiations will be carried out simultaneously. It's still better to negotiate. Other than killing people within the order, this person is still very low-key to the outside world. Bamboo Pole suggested. Kitty, why don't you share your view? Let's discuss it together. There wasn't any direct conflict in the first place. If we can reason with him, and both of us take a step back, it would be best. Luonan could not get a word in on this discussion. After all, the target of the operation was no longer the human-faced arachnid, but a more direct problem like Fairchild. However, it was not right to say that he was completely unoccupied. Child had been watching him in a way that was difficult for others to understand. Luonan received it. He had to receive it. Finally, Guoju's calamity was over. Fairchild walked up from behind him, no longer paying attention to him. It was only now that Guoju dared to bend his knees. His entire body fell limply to the ground. He stared blankly at Fairchild's back. His body swayed within the dazzling white light. In the end, his head hit the ground and he fainted. Good news. There's a way. You must hold on. Several messages popped up in the encrypted channel at the same time. Guoju's narrow escape gave the members of the society a glimpse of hope. Today, the killing intent of this Ears of Truth did not seem to be particularly strong. But soon, the few people sharing Cat Eyes' view in the channel felt a bit strange. Fairchild's gaze was slightly off in the direction they were facing. It looked very uncomfortable. Kitty, who's he looking at? Mr. Luo. Cat Eyes answered simply. Only then did many people in the channel remember that Luo Nan, the convener of this event, had not spoken for a long time ever since they started spamming the channel. Hey, are you still holding on? Bamboo Pole had cooperated with Luo Nan once before, so he had a rather deep impression of Luo Nan. From Bamboo Pole's perspective, Luo Nan was a specialized psychic. He was also an extremely inexperienced young student. His psychic drawing ability was astonishing, but he did not display any special talent when it came to his ability to deal with affairs. That night, He Wayne had planned all of his actions for him. Occasionally, he would reveal his extraordinary talent, but it was Cat Eyes who was courting death. It made sense when one thought about it. A 16-year-old high school student who was trapped in the self-logic of a psychic all year round would not be a genius, but a monster if he could coordinate, communicate, and deal with affairs. Bamboo Pole's worries were very practical. Would this half-grown kid be able to hold on when facing one of the most terrifying executioners of the Order of Justice? This did not just require courage. It also required wisdom, experience, cultivation, and even a bit of luck. Luonan did not respond. The people in the encrypted channel did not even know if he had noticed this message. Kitty, what's going on with your partner? Yeah, he's under a lot of pressure. Cat Eyes shifted her gaze as she responded. This allowed the people in the encrypted channel to see Luonan's appearance next to her. It was just as Cat Eyes had described. Luonan's body was clearly a bit stiff. His face was the same. At the very least, it did not appear to be alive. Luonan's gaze was fixed straight ahead, meeting with Fairchild's dark gray pupils. Luonan's face was expressionless, but Fairchild's body language was alive. It was coordinated from top to bottom, revealing calmness, callousness, and dignity. As for Luonan, the muscles of his entire body were stiff. Anyone could see the tension and pressure he was under. Hey, hurry up and wake up. Relax your breathing. He can't hear us. He's done for. He's completely suppressed. It's already pretty good that he can look him in the eye. How old is he? Fairchild doesn't care about his age. That Huang Bingjin doesn't seem to be much older than Luonan. Amidst the chaos, there were people who were baffled. Why is he focusing on Luonan? What is Fairchild thinking? Could he have seen that Luonan is a psychic? The Order of Justice definitely doesn't lack psychics. They rely on psychics to make a name for themselves. Wave after wave of messages flooded the encrypted channel. Some used text, some used voice, and some simply used telepathy. All sorts of methods were mixed together, turning it into a pot of porridge. But in the next instant, all the chaos froze at the same time. This was because Fairchild's lips opened and closed. His deep and low voice flowed clearly within the room. Chapter 196. What chains? Other than He Yuan in the encrypted channel, everyone else was baffled. Although Cat Eyes knew what was going on, it was very complicated for her to clearly describe it. She could only give a simple explanation. It's an application technique of Mr. Luo's on the mental plane. This explanation confused the technique and nature of Luo Nan's ability, but no one could point it out. Fortunately, Fairchild had his own opinions. He was not affected by the encrypted channel. He spoke slowly with a deep and vigorous voice. Looking at your chains is like looking at an airtight prison. Rules, laws, temperance, control. It possesses a pleasantly surprising sense of order. I really like it. This kind of evaluation, this kind of form, made everyone feel very surprised. It was like praise, but it was also like idle chatter. It caused the tense atmosphere to gradually ease up. This was a very good start. The problem was that everyone could see that Luo Nan was not good at this kind of situation. His reactions were very slow. He actually missed the best opportunity to communicate. He faced Fairchild directly, and did not make any response, even when Fairchild's voice completely dissipated in the room. He maintained his silence from beginning to end. From the perspective of a group of onlookers, the atmosphere eased up for less than 2 seconds before turning awkward and stiff once more. Everyone in the encrypted channel beat their chests and stomped their feet. What a waste of an opportunity! Cat Eyes felt it even more clearly. She was a bit anxious, and took a step forward, wanting to negotiate with Fairchild in Luo Nan's place. But when she took this step, and was halfway in front of Luo Nan, Cat Eyes suddenly choked up. The words she had prepared were inexplicably unable to come out of her mouth. Her momentum weakened by a third. It was not easy for her to speak, so she unconsciously changed her words. Mr. Fairchild, we believe that all of this is a misunderstanding. We accidentally encountered this filthy secular exchange while we were chasing the human-faced arachnid. We are also trying to stop it. Fairchild remained expressionless. He did not even glance at Cat Eyes. He just replied with a proverb. When truth stands at the forefront, the secular should retreat. Cat Eyes opened her mouth, but she suddenly felt speechless. It was not just because of Fairchild's cold words. More directly, it was because she suddenly discovered that under the awkward and stiff atmosphere, there was something more direct and... This chapter is not finished. Please turn the page. A dangerous undercurrent. The undercurrent surged on the mental plane. Moreover, it was a deep region that Cat Eyes found very difficult to perceive. It was only when Fairchild opened his mouth that a large fluctuation occurred in the mental attack, allowing Cat Eyes to peek at part of the truth. The sound of the heavily chained crow continued to reverberate. It was filled with the smell of danger and danger. This allowed Cat Eyes to confirm that Luo Nan and Child were engaged in an invisible contest right next to her. And she actually knew nothing about it. Cat Eyes did not know when this contest began or how long it lasted. But at this moment, she truly felt that she was an outsider. And a blind one at that. In the encrypted channel, Bamboo Pole noticed a problem. Stand at the front. It seems like Fairchild really does look at Luo Nan differently. Cat Eyes did not reply. She was still recovering from the scars of the attack. After all, Bamboo Pole did not understand the situation, and could only make wild guesses. That won't do. Fairchild has already made his stance clear. If we don't get a response, and don't meet his expectations, no one knows what he'll do. How is Mr. Shaman's theoretical research? Between soul studies and philosophy, which one is better? Also, you can't get entangled in techniques when it comes to communication. At Fairchild's level, he can completely distinguish all lies. Just speak normally. Say whatever you want. I'll give it a try. Luo Nan's sudden response stupefied everyone in the encrypted channel. Actually, Luo Nan had been paying attention to the information in the encrypted channel all this time. He was very clear about the things that Bamboo Pole, Red Fox, and the others were discussing and worrying about. Luo Nan and Fairchild were indeed still confronting each other on the mental plane, using this special method to communicate. However, this did not mean that Luo Nan was satisfied with this. He actually did not feel too good. Due to the continuous use of soul strength, the pressure his body endured was gradually increasing. Soreness, pain, stiffness. His nervous system transmitted all sorts of negative effects to every part of his body. They were fed back one by one, forming a vicious cycle that continued to increase. If a simple verbal exchange could satisfy everything, why would he need to take this unnecessary risk? However, Luo Nan really did not know what to say. His mind spun round and round, but no matter how he thought, he was unable to find a perfect response. He knew nothing. Please continue to the next page if this chapter is not finished. Tao. How could communication between people be perfect in every aspect? In the end, his fear and suppression had taken the upper hand. Furthermore, he had the goal of stalling for time, so he was limited in every aspect. Bamboo Pole's reminder gave him some direction. What did he want to say the most right now when faced with Fairchild's evaluation? Luo Nan stared at Fairchild's callous and calm face. A few seconds passed before he took a deep breath and spoke softly. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Fairchild. We're done for. The channel was filled with sorrowful cries. Luo Nan had responded immediately after Fairchild spoke, but it was not too bad. Just how long did he need to react to thank Fairchild? The channel was too chaotic. He Yuan, who had not spoken for a long time, simply cleared the screen. She did not need to do anything. Luo Nan had already given up on referring to the contents of the channel. He just said what he wanted to say. This is one of the results of my grandfather's research. I call it my heart's a prison. The prison of a prison. Based on the foundation of formatting theory. If there was anything in this world that could cause Luo Nan to talk endlessly, then it would be his grandfather's achievements. His grandfather's formatting theory. After all, this was the result of his entire 5 years of blood, sweat and tears. However, Child was not here to listen to his science. After 2 or 3 sentences, he cut to the chase and began a formal conversation. It's very good to have a special structure and function in a wonderful way, but physical training is terrible. Is it because of the lack of a system? This was a criticism of my heart's a prison. Luo Nan knew that Child was right, but at this moment, he felt that he needed to reciprocate. Mr. Child's mental storm also lacks order. It lacks a sense of rhythm. As soon as he said that, everyone in the encrypted channel went silent. They couldn't even utter a single word. Why did he suddenly become angry? When he finally came back to his senses, the channel was filled with notifications. Steady. Just bear with it for now. They don't have any ill intentions. Don't argue, or you'll be at a disadvantage. Unfortunately, Luo Nan had already completely ignored the opinion of the encrypted channel at this time. He followed the previous words and said, "What's the reason? It's too late. I can only make adjustments." Chapter 198. Luo Nan thought of Ruiwen the moment he opened his mouth. That night, when Ruiwen broke through the encirclement of the deep blue walkers, her strength had seamlessly switched from the material plane to the mental plane. Luo Nan would never forget the formation of an absolute explosive force and the incomparable changes in tempo. Luo Nan had never truly experienced Fairchild's strength, but Ruiwen was above him in terms of tempo coordination. It was precisely because of the lack of a harmonized rhythm that the pressure Fairchild exerted on him during the confrontation on the mental plane was erratic and intermittent. The impact of the mental storm was very difficult to achieve Ruiwen's explosive power. Compared to the Bloodflame Order's Elder Emoluan, it was much weaker. But was the difference between Fairchild, Ruiwen, and Emoluan that obvious? Even if he did not compare Ruiwen, why did he feel that the boldness of this Ears of Truth was above that of Emoluan? This was Luo Nan's doubt. If Luo Nan used pure words to express himself, he might not be able to express himself clearly when it came to all sorts of backgrounds and secrets. But Fairchild only used 2 or 3 sentences. Fairchild's response was even simpler. Reason. He simply repeated a word, and then took a step forward. With this one step, the entire luxurious room seemed to tremble. This was not an illusion. The equipment, the furnishings, and the people standing, sitting, kneeling, and lying in the room all trembled slightly. The 3 destroyed robots even let out rattling sounds. A dazzling halo of light spread from Fairchild's chest. It instantly enveloped his entire body and illuminated the entire room. Every corner of the room was completely devoid of shadows. Even the finest hair could be seen. It was at this moment that information exploded in the encrypted channel. Ah! The shield of truth. He's gone crazy. He's going to fight without saying a word. He's really courting death. He's done for. Where's the negotiation? Where's the backup? Kitty, run. Faster. Faster. Cat Eyes subconsciously took a step back, but she did not make any further movements. This was because Luo Nan did not move a single inch when facing Fairchild's terrifying pressure. At most he coughed twice. The pressure on Luo Nan's body grew even greater, but that was all there was to it on the mental plane. Please turn the page if this chapter is not finished. Child. He narrowed his eyes slightly and looked at Fairchild. The dazzling sound and light effects. As Fairchild released his aura, the surrounding environment was inevitably affected. It was no longer just the luxurious room that was trembling. The entire Frost River reality seemed to be trembling. Was Child going to make a move? Luonan didn't think so. At this moment, what appeared in front of him was an energy and information operation structure built with his physical body as the foundation. Due to the limitations of the material plane, the structure was not as intuitive as the spiritual plane. The details could not be seen clearly, but the general principle was still clearly presented. The material plane and the mental plane pushed and interfered with each other, forming a vortex that existed on both the material plane and the mental plane at the same time, forming a dynamic yet stable structure. Child's spirit and body were one in this structure, supporting and interacting with each other. This was Child's reply. Perhaps it was very difficult for him to realize the rhythm of Rue Wen's body and soul merging and harmonizing. But the state of his body and soul had established a stable and powerful structure. The feeling he gave off was like an atomic furnace that contained enormous power. The mental and material interfered with each other inside, colliding intensely, yet they operated in precise coordination, perfect and perfect. Luonan was speechless for a time. Only now did he truly understand the level of Child's power. It far surpassed anyone Luonan had ever seen. If he had not seen it with his own eyes, Luonan would find it hard to imagine that a human with a mortal body could actually accumulate such astonishing energy within their body. In the end, the attack and defense on the mental plane and the storm set off were just the overflowing heat from this atomic furnace. Similarly, if Child's answer were to be translated into words, it would take 1,000 words to completely understand. Just one step was enough for Luonan to understand everything clearly. The foundation of the exchange between the two was precisely the confrontation on the mental plane. The heavily chained crow and the mental storm, one defensive and one offensive, collided and probed at each other every moment. All they needed to do was to repeat some of the situations that occurred during their exchange using words. Compared to the reality of the plane, perhaps it was closer to the original intentions of the two. Luonan had to admit that he was very suited for this sort of exchange. It was simple and direct, saving him a lot of meaningless words. This chapter is not over. Please turn the page. There was no need to express any attitude. All intentions were clearly revealed through the mutual collision and probing on the mental plane. The only problem was that this sort of exchange was too strenuous. Luonan's soul could withstand it, but this did not mean that his body could. So he tried to use more words to translate. First, he needed to apologize for Child's misjudgment of the mental storm. I'm sorry. However, I don't think that my grandfather's theory isn't systematic. This situation only occurred because of the choice of method and the lack of depth of understanding in his early years. Everything else didn't matter. There was only one point, and that was Child's evaluation of formatting theory's lack of systematicness. This made Luonan very dissatisfied. The format of My Heart's a Prison was the result of systematic research. However, Luonan had chosen a dangerous method. He used psychotropic drugs to gradually correct the format of his nervous system, ultimately obtaining this ability. He had neglected the problem of his body during this process. This was also because he had not truly understood the essence of the formatting and the operational structure of energy and information in the past 5 years. He believed that if he was given the time to start over, he would be able to coordinate his soul and body better. At the very least, he would not be in such an extreme state of imbalance. As Luo Nan defended himself, he used his finger to point and gesture at Child's body. This further clarified the focus of his mental clairvoyance. It was the cranial nerves, the spinal nerves, and the nodes that Luo Nan had figured out over the past week. If he had been able to give these areas additional stimulation and training in the past 5 years, the results might have been completely different. What the hell is he doing? Is he apologizing, or is he defending himself? What's up with his grandfather's theory? Does anyone know? The group of enthusiastic people in the encrypted channel were all stupefied. Luo Nan's words were incoherent, and he was gesticulating. Anyone who saw it would feel that it was incomprehensible. It was completely unreasonable. They thought to themselves that if they were in Luo Nan's shoes, they would certainly slap the ball to death. But looking at the current situation, Child did not make a move. Not only did he not make a move, but his dark gray eyes were focused on Luo Nan. He looked extremely focused. What was this? An exchange between a madman and a fanatic? They were surprisingly in tune. Chapter 199. It was already 8 o'clock in the evening. The rain was still falling endlessly from the sky. Bamboo Pole held an umbrella as he walked leisurely on the main street. On the side of the road, an enchanting beauty was grumbling to her companion in a low voice. Aside from the annoying autumn rain, there was also the slight earthquake just now. Bamboo Pole kept turning his head until the enchanting beauty's figure disappeared into the depths of the stream of people. If he did not have a mission tonight, he would not have minded a beautiful street encounter. As for the beginning of the conversation, there was no harm in saying. Actually, it wasn't an earthquake just now. It was just two brothers with mental issues having a heated conversation. At this moment, Fairchild's voice came from the Hexa ear. Your order is reflected in your soul. My order is reflected in my fleshly body. We have only completed one side of the problem, while hoping to fix the flaw on the other side. The only difference is that I can continue to search for a solution, just like your chains. But you must first complete a difficult surgery and make a systematic correction. The error lies in the theory or in the choice. It will not change the result. This was the longest Fairchild had said tonight. Bamboo Pole found the feeling of being a kindred spirit funny and strange when he heard it. Hold on. Fairchild was implying that he was very interested in Luo Nan's My Heart's a Prison format? Forget about anything else. As long as this conversation got out, the name of Mr. Psychic and his formatting theory would certainly soar. It would resound throughout Xia City. But was that thing really that useful? Bamboo Pole walked into Yulon Hotel with doubts. He took the elevator straight to the 89th floor. This was a restaurant. At a table by the window, a young man wearing a red jacket waved at him. Hey buddy, the best spot. It only costs 20 credits. Bamboo Pole curled his lips and walked over to sit down. The best spot is a block away. Kitty will be happy to trade places with you. That being said, when he looked through the drizzled glass window, he could still clearly see the triangular indoor playground 2 kilometers away. Red Fox grinned with an odd expression. The feeling of the 3 buildings swaying together was really cool. The spaceship is about to take off. The layout of Frost River Reality was very interesting. The entire building spanned across 3 independent buildings, each occupying a portion of the floor. The entire building was painted in the interwoven colors of space black and silver white. It was like a large triangular alien spaceship that was inserted into the city. It seemed as though it could fly into space at any time. Just a few minutes ago, Child had released the Shield of Truth. It was an exaggeration to say that it had shaken 3 buildings, but the strong sense of oppression that spanned the mental and material planes and radiated to the surrounding area covered a surprisingly wide area. Along the way, Bamboo Pole encountered pedestrians everywhere who thought it was an earthquake. Roughly estimating, the radius had already exceeded 3 kilometers. It was truly monstrous. On the other hand, Luo Nan and Cat Eyes, who were in front of Fairchild, were not affected too much. Perhaps Fairchild really was looking at them differently. As a technician, Bamboo Pole was not like the Red Fox. Once he was on standby, he would have nothing to do. The moment he sat down, he took out the foldable flexible screen that never left his side and started working. With a few movements, he connected to the monitoring system of Frost River Reality and the surrounding buildings. Logically speaking, even if he was an expert in information electronics, this would still be very difficult to accomplish. However, the society always had shares in Frost River Reality. They had quite a bit of relevant authority. Relying on the temporary authority Yuan gave him, it was relatively easy for him to do these things. Hundreds and thousands of monitoring images switched back and forth on the flexible screen. Only an ability user like Bamboo Pole, who had exceptional dynamic vision, was able to grasp the key information within. Red Fox stretched his head out to take a few glances. He was extremely puzzled. What's the point of doing all this right now? That freak Fairchild has a radius of 3 kilometers. That's a field of control of 30 square kilometers. Right now we might even be the ones being monitored by him. Bamboo Pole did not even raise his head. He continued to filter through the images with his eyes. It's not that exaggerated. The resonance range of the shield of truth and the field of control are different. A ratio of 10 to 1 is already quite amazing. After all, it's a kind of cultivation where the body and soul are fused together. How can it be the same as mental senses? Oh, I forgot. You're an expert in the research of secret orders. Red Fox was the first to breathe a sigh of relief. That earthquake just now had really increased the pressure on him. He was feeling much better now. Don't relax too early. Fairchild has never been a high-profile character. Just now, he actually released the Shield of Truth without the slightest scruple to cover 30 square kilometers. He must have another goal. What's his goal? I don't know for now. Oh, there's a way. This is troublesome. The monitoring images were constantly being cut down. The images of certain people were becoming more and more prominent. Bamboo Pole transferred these images to the psychic wave network. Then, he edited and annotated them before cutting into the encrypted channel. This was so that everyone involved in the operation could see it. Kitty, pay attention. The Order of Justice's secular side can't hold it in any longer. The Knights of Equity have already arrived at least 2 small squads of 10 people. At least half of them have entered the field. Red Fox stared at the image and exclaimed, "Wow, do you see that piano case? I'll bet the points from this operation that it's definitely a large caliber sniper rifle. Otherwise, it would be impossible for it to pose any threat to Fairchild. They've already begun to occupy sniping spots. This is intolerable." The encrypted channel exploded once again. That's odd. No matter how dissatisfied the secular side was in the past, they were used to being cowards. What's going on this time? They want to start a religious war? The Order of Justice wants to split? That's really good news. The problem is that we've all become fish in the pond. Yuan's orders cut into the chaos. Bamboo Pole, Yulon Hotel is one of the best sniping spots in the neighborhood. It must be included in our monitoring. If it isn't necessary, avoid direct conflict with the people of the order. Understood. I'm not a combatant. There was no temporary authority to use here. Bamboo Pole could not avoid personally making a trip to the central control room. He stood up and was about to move when Red Fox slapped his thigh. Look, who's that? Zhang Yingying. That girl is participating in the operation? Why is she going over there? Bamboo Pole was stunned. He hurriedly adjusted the monitoring image and saw Zhang Yingying and a tall beauty wearing a windbreaker walking side by side into Frost River Reality. The two of them held each other's arms as they chatted and laughed along the way. They had an amiable demeanor and were very eye-catching. However, the windbreaker beauty's spiritual senses were very sharp. She suddenly turned her gaze towards the monitoring probe, meeting face to face with the people who were paying attention to her. Her dark chestnut-colored eyes were bright and beautiful. However, her expression, which seemed to be smiling yet not smiling, carried an indescribably deep meaning. Bamboo Pole inexplicably felt that this woman was familiar, but he could not recall where he had seen her before. Before he could finish his thought, Red Fox pushed him. Look! From their angle, they could see the low-altitude flying shuttle stop above the rooftop of Frost River Reality. He Yuan's tall and slender figure descended from the sky, behind the blurry curtain of rain. She told us to wait for orders. Chapter 200. The current Frost River Reality was a bit different than usual. Around 8 o'clock in the evening was the time when Frost River Reality was at its most bustling. At first glance, the reception hall seemed to be packed with people. However, most people were either heading out or hesitating. Fights, earthquakes, police intervention, and several batches of special forces had come. Plus, there were people being sent out to ambulances. No matter how big of a heart the players had, they would still feel apprehensive. The amusement park did not do anything about this. After Xue Weiluan and Yin Li's conversation, the group of managers no longer held any hope for tonight's revenue in the spirit of cooperating with the police. They let the police torment them. This was the scene Zhang Yingying saw when she entered Frost River Reality. She could not help but sigh. If that earthquake monster came here, everyone in the reception hall would be dead. A group of ignorant and pathetic people. We knowingly violated it. So what? Bai Xingyan shrugged. It must be a moral model that keeps promises. Doctors have to be responsible for their patients. Zhang Yingying reached out to touch her face. The skin grafting technique of Luoyang City is amazing. It's 10 times thicker, isn't it? Bai Xingyan's eyelids fluttered. She turned to bite Zhang Yingying's fingertip. Zhang Yingying giggled and pulled back. Just as she was about to say something, her eardrums vibrated. A communication came through the hexa ear. Hey, don't be too wasteful. How do you expect us men to endure this? Bamboo pole, you peeping Tom. Zhang Yingying ground her teeth. You were the one controlling the camera just now, weren't you? It's a surveillance camera. I have to make sure you don't get wet while carrying out the mission. Speaking of which, didn't you guys feel such an obvious sign? You said earthquake monster? Of course I know. But right now I'm accompanying a guest or picking someone up. White Salt has a patient here. White Salt. Bamboo Pole's voice suddenly rose an octave. Are you sure it's the one in the brown windbreaker next to you? TSK. I haven't seen her for a few years, and her style has changed. My impression of her is that of a researcher in a white coat. Does she have a boyfriend? Zhang Yingying rolled her eyes. Another communication came through. Hello, Miss Zhang. Secretary he, Vice President he. Zhang Yingying's voice was clearly drawn out when she saw the caller ID. She did not have a good impression of this new acquaintance, who had seen through her weak nature, and forced her to train at the bottom of the sea. Zhang Yingying noticed that the moment the call connected, Bamboo Pole had cut off the connection. This gave her a rough idea. One wouldn't visit a temple without a reason. Contacting him at this time was probably the mission that Bamboo Pole had mentioned. It's time to put on airs. However, He Yuan didn't have any intention of making friends, and directly informed him of the current situation. Due to the lack of time, he didn't go into too many details, and only introduced the main points. Only then did Zhang Yingying know which earthquake monster she had just heard was. Luo Nan is confronting Child. Is he looking to die? At present, Fairchild will not harm him for the time being. However, in the coming conflict between the secular side and the truth side of the order of justice, it is very likely that he will be drawn into it. Right now we need a few support points just in case. Can you join us? Zhang Yingying was speechless. The potential stock that he had introduced to the club now seemed to be a troublemaker who specialized in stirring up trouble. She didn't think about it for too long. She glanced at Bai Xingyan and said, I'm fine with joining, but I have a friend right now. Bai Xingyan. You know her? Bai Xingyan raised her eyebrows when she saw Zhang Yingying's gaze. In the next moment, her wristband vibrated. She saw the person she was contacting, and a smile blossomed on her face. Hello, sister. Long time no see. How are you doing? Zhang Yingying's eyes widened. She wanted to open her mouth to ask, but she saw Bai Xingyan and He Yuan chatting happily. She could only gesture back and forth for a time. How do you know her? Bai Xingyan just blinked at Zhang Yingying. Then she gave He Yuan a definite answer. No problem. I'm half a member of the society. Plus, I haven't been back to Xia City for a long time. I don't know how high the standards here are. It's good to have a chance to observe up close. However, she didn't completely comply with He Yuan's arrangements. She paused for a moment and then said, "Do you have a more proactive strategy? The situation right now is very chaotic. Who are our friends and who are our enemies? The most important problem is to clarify this." This conversation was not hidden from others. Bamboo Pole and the others who were participating in the operation could hear it through He Yuan's channel. They were all deeply distressed. A hunting operation against the human-faced arachnid had turned into an encounter with the ears of Truth Fairchild. But right after that, it had turned into an internal conflict within the order of justice. The continuous shifting of contradictions left people at a loss as to what to do. They really were just here to surround the human-faced arachnid. But right now, powerful characters and powers were endlessly joining in, forming a giant maelstrom. The momentum grew fiercer and fiercer, and it looked as if there was no direction to speak of. These people felt a great deal of pressure, even though they were just there to provide support. In reality, there were already people who were beating the drums of retreat. Red Fox's desire to fight had never been too strong. Right now, the order of justice is in a catfight. It's not appropriate for us to get involved, right? Most of the secret order are madmen. If an all-out war between the society and the order is ignited, then who will be responsible? Someone called Metal Box immediately appeared in the encrypted channel. He gave Red Fox's post a thumbs up. He had yet to arrive at Yulan Hotel, but he didn't want to come. The society's mission briefing still has the human-faced arachnid written on it. Where the hell is the human-faced arachnid? I just saw Fairchild. When the mission ends, how will the points be calculated? This mission is too unreliable. The Wilderness Explorers Society had never been an organization with a powerful binding force. It was very difficult for a group of ability users to truly follow orders and prohibitions. For example, during the operation against the human-faced arachnid last time, Black Beetle and He Yuan had a disagreement and Black Beetle had simply withdrawn. Afterward, Black Beetle was unable to do anything to Black Beetle. What's more, the chaotic and ever-changing direction of the operation gave people an excuse to withdraw. With Red Fox and Metal Box mentioning it, even Bamboo Pole, who had fought together with Luo Nan, could not help but be moved. What about the others? Zhang Yingying had just entered the encrypted channel when she saw the scene of collapse. She was stupefied for a time. She turned to look at Bai Xinyan. She did not know what to say. Bai Xinyan was smiling as usual. She was not a member of the society. She did not have the hexa ear, so she could not see the changes in the encrypted channel. Right now, she was waiting for He Yuan to reply. However, before He Yuan's reply could arrive, a wave of commotion was transmitted from the activity area of Frost River Reality. Attack. A terrorist attack. The special police in the luxury room of Area A have been attacked. Dead bodies litter the ground. The transmission of the information was not particularly clear in the beginning. However, at the entrance to Frost River Reality, a man and a woman had just met. They were having a difficult conversation with each other. They were especially sensitive to this kind of information. After a moment of shock, the man did not say anything further. He buried his head and charged into the hall. The woman did not manage to pull him back. She cried out involuntarily, "Shuele!" Chapter 201. Inside the luxurious private room in Area A, Cat Eyes let out an irritated breath. She forced herself to shift her attention away from the chaos of the encrypted channel. But when her gaze turned to the two people in the private room, who were still communicating with hand gestures, she felt that it was much more fun to quarrel in the encrypted channel. The entire situation was stirred into chaos by the whirlwind storm, but there were still some people in the center of the eye of the storm who didn't have the slightest awareness. There was no need to talk about Child. After all, he was one of the most powerful people in Summer City right now. He could be ranked as an extraordinaire. But the other person? What makes you think you can do this? Luo Nan unconsciously took a step forward in front of Cat Eyes. The distance between him and Child had already closed to within 3 steps. Luonan could practically reach out with his hand. In fact, Luonan really did reach out with his hand. His hand swung out at an angle. It seemed as if his hand had sliced past Child's head. Child's expression didn't change. He had an extremely serious and focused appearance. Luonan retracted his hand and spread it open again. That's waste heat. I agree with this description. Since it's waste heat, how can it be controlled? This is the problem I'm facing. My problem is a dangerous surgery, but it can be done in theory. Your problem is simply a logical error. How can it be done? Cat Eyes couldn't help but rub her forehead. She felt that Luonan and Child's thoughts had already entered a level that others were unable to comprehend. And they were sinking deeper and deeper. Luonan didn't care what other people thought. It was fine as long as he understood and Child understood. Luonan's original intention of using words to replace communication on the mental plane was already left behind without a trace, starting from whether or not formatting theory was systematic or not. He was convinced that this method of communication was indeed the most suitable for him. He and Child revolved around the core of the structure and order of the mental and material planes. They kept going deeper and deeper. The rules of the mental plane, the order of the material plane, the interference and influence between the two, the confusion of form and soul, the change of rhythm, and so on and so forth. Luonan only had a smattering of understanding of many of these things. Perhaps he knew but didn't know why. But no matter what thoughts and questions he threw out, Child was always able to understand and respond. Child used his nearly perfect shield of truth state to give the most direct demonstration. Similarly, the situation Child described was always able to evoke Luonan's inspiration and resonance. He stood on the theoretical basis of formatting theory and combined it with his own practice, as well as Raven and Jack's exquisite and intuitive demonstration that night. In terms of soul configuration, blending of form and soul breathing, he was always able to come up with something that made Child's eyes light up. During this process, Luonan's originally somewhat muddled train of thought gradually cleared up. This was especially true in the domain of the interaction and interference of the mental and material planes. Some specious things were swept clean. Luonan's mind was unprecedentedly clear. In comparison, the physical stress was nothing. However, as the two of them cleared up their train of thought, the conflict that had never been seen before also appeared. The main source of the conflict was Child. This Ears of Truth saw the wonders of the format of My Heart's a Prison, and even soul breathing, and praised the order at the mental level that it brought. But what he hoped to do wasn't just to see clearly. If Child's structure of form and soul could be viewed as an atomic furnace, then this powerful structural system was mainly established on the material plane as a foundation. Its main area of effect was also on the material plane. What manifested was his powerful body and defensive abilities that transcended the mortal plane. This structural system was powerful and highly orderly, but it was also relatively closed off. The soul and flesh interacted with each other, each occupying their own position. No matter which side it was not easy to leave the circle. Because of this, Child's development on the mental plane was limited, while he obtained powerful physical strength. The storm he formed on the mental plane was nothing more than a reuse of the overflowing heat of the atomic furnace. Luonan couldn't be compared to Child, but he could use Raven to make a comparison. Raven's blending of form and soul pursued the seamless transition of multiple planes. She could rapidly jump between different frequencies of the mental and material plane. She possessed inconceivable adaptability, flexibility, and explosive power. Child, on the other hand, was fixed on one level and one frequency. He took this structure to the extreme and slowly expanded its range of influence. Luonan couldn't say the pros and cons of these two models. He could only say that if Child had been in Raven's position last Sunday night, then the charged particle cannon on the artificial lake in the park might not have been effective. But if time was pushed back and Child fell into a state of unconsciousness due to the brain pulse, it would be very difficult for him to wake up on his own. He could only be trampled upon. Of course, It was better to directly burn Child's head than to form a pulse that could knock him unconscious. From the perspective of Luo Nan's understanding, Child was already sufficiently powerful. His atomic furnace was the structural system formed from the shield of truth, of the Order of Justice's secret cultivation technique. Its firmness and solidity had already surpassed the imaginations of humans. But from Child's point of view, this wasn't perfect. The purpose of cultivation is to explore the truth. We need to observe this world from a more holistic perspective. We need to discover the profound mysteries hidden deep within the world. We need to clarify the order of the world. Nothing is more important than observation. Observation is the most crucial ability for humans to understand and order the world. Currently, at the level that I can reach, my exploration is about to come to an end, but my observation ability is limited by the current structure system. Whether it is in terms of depth or breadth, it is difficult for me to make any progress. This is absolutely unacceptable. Then do you know that there are people drooling over your steel body? Luo Nan understood Child's pursuit, but he didn't believe that Child's direction was correct. Your observation is limited because of your own structural system. I call it the self-format, a high level of order. It affects and disturbs the external environment at all times. Your self-format absorbs negative entropy, and the external heaven and earth format increases entropy, producing waste heat. Then it's normal for there to be no order and no rhythm. You can use it, but it doesn't mean that you can break free from this format and start anew. It just means that you are expanding the range of control of the self-format. You are constantly distorting the heaven and earth format for your own use. You are influencing the material plane to the mental plane. And I am the exact opposite. Looking at it from this perspective, Cat Eye's judgment of Child being an all-rounder was wrong. Child's foundation was still on the material plane. He was a fleshly body strengthening from head to toe. It was just that he was so powerful to the extreme that he formed an astonishing interference power on the mental plane. Luo Nan thought again. He grasped soul breathing. After his soul strength increased dramatically, he used his mental power to interfere with the material plane. He formed halos, phantoms, and other anomalies. Those should be the embodiment of waste heat. To read the latest novel without error, please visit Chapter 202. There's a chapter up ahead. Don't miss it, everyone. Theory and practice mutually verified each other. The more Luo Nan spoke, the more he felt his mind clear and unobstructed. He didn't care whether it was right or wrong. He expressed his thoughts directly in his mind, through words and demonstrations on the mental plane. Everything was displayed. The mental self-format only needs to focus on whether the operating structure of energy and information is reasonable or not, whether it is efficient or not. It can be modified and changed at any time. However, restoring it to the fleshly body is extremely difficult. It's like the inspiration of a designer. They can produce beautiful renderings, but there is always a distance from practical application. The material-oriented self-format must take care of the internal organs, blood, nerves, muscles, bones, and other aspects. It even includes the precise cells and biological macromolecules. This is like the work of an architect. He must fully consider the practicality of every material and every structure. This was not Luo Nan speaking carelessly. Instead, it was the subtlety that was reflected in Fairchild's previous demonstration. Even though only the tip of the iceberg was revealed, it made Luo Nan gasp in amazement. Observation is the vocation of mentally enhanced people. They use observation to understand the operating principles of all things in the world. They use observation to experiment and predict a more precise and efficient operating structure of energy and information. Oh, you can call it configuration. It forms a perfect prerequisite. Luo Nan felt more and more that the word configuration that Jack spoke of was really concise and wonderful. He could not help but use it again. As for the fleshly body enhanced people, they should pay attention to the actual restoration of the configuration. They should embody the control and transformation ability of the material plane. You are using the material aspect to do work on the mental aspect. Of course, it will be very difficult to succeed. This goes against the laws of the material nature. Fairchild allowed Luo Nan to talk and demonstrate without end, though there were many commonplace things within, and he had heard them so many times that he had grown callous from day to day. Fairchild listened quietly from beginning to end. This was because he knew that Luo Nan wasn't trying to teach or demonstrate anything. Instead, Luo Nan was sorting out his self-knowledge once more. Only when Luo Nan clarified the division between the mental and the material aspects did Fairchild speak briefly. Why can't it be done at the same time? Done at the same time? Luo Nan suddenly choked. He was a bit stupefied. Yeah, why can't it be done at the same time? It's clearly possible. Fairchild had just proposed an idea, but Luo Nan had a living example. Rui 1. That little girl who was still in a coma, yet her slender body hid an inconceivable ability. She used a few short minutes of murderous attacks to give Luo Nan the most brilliant demonstration. Luo Nan once believed that Rui 1 and Child's 2 models each had their own merits. But now he suddenly discovered that Rui 1's configuration of body and soul was actually the most exquisite model that displayed the effects of balance on the mental and material planes. From Luo Nan's current level of understanding, it was nearly perfect. It's really enough. While Luo Nan was in a daze, Cat Eyes had reached the end of her patience. Right now, the society's encrypted channel had completely collapsed. Metal Box had directly withdrawn from the operation. Red Fox and Papercut were also wavering. Wayne had allowed the situation to develop. It was a far cry from her previous strong style. Cat Eyes was the one waiting to be rescued in a dangerous situation. Naturally, she did not feel good about it. Luo Nan, this bastard, was still engaging in conversation that was sometimes unfathomable and sometimes cliched. Fairchild could endure it, but she couldn't. Cat Eyes simply slapped Luo Nan on the back. It's like a boiling pot outside. Huh. As the slap landed, Luo Nan's body fell forward. Fortunately, Cat Eyes reacted quickly. She grabbed his shoulder, preventing him from falling to Fairchild's feet. It must be known that Cat Eyes was sharing her perspective. As long as Luo Nan's situation was within the encrypted channel, there was nothing she could not see. Yuan's cold voice cut in. What's going on? Zhang Yingying exclaimed in surprise. Heart Destroyer Palm. Cat Eyes was flabbergasted. Only the heavens knew what was going on. Luo Nan, this kid, had a serious imbalance between his soul and fleshly body. But he shouldn't be weak to this degree. Compared to Cat Eyes' blank reaction, Fairchild was not the least bit surprised. He just took advantage of the situation and raised his gaze to point at an empty area above. There Luo Nan reacted awkwardly. Due to the demonstration of forgetting himself on the mental plane, he had unknowingly pulled apart the distance between his soul and fleshly body. He had accidentally left his body. Fortunately, he had penetrated deeper on the mental plane. Fairchild, who had been communicating with him all this time, was able to lock onto Luo Nan's position. If he did not leave his body once, it would be hard for his fleshly body to avoid suffering. Luo Nan sighed to himself and was about to go back when Fairchild's telepathic thoughts cut in at this time. He continued with the previous topic. Balancing isn't a compromise. It's a pure correction. Have you ever tasted that feeling? It's like sleeping peacefully within the membrane of a fetus. It's like melting within the radiance of truth. Every breath connects the inner and outer worlds. It's truly exhaling the old and taking in the new. Fairchild's description was a bit abstract and chaotic, but his sincere feelings melded into the storm on the mental plane, giving Luo Nan a vague experience. We can try it out. You help me first. Anyone else would have been confused by Fairchild's description, but Luo Nan understood it without any difficulty. His mind was suddenly filled with intense curiosity. He forgot about the matter of his soul returning to his body. The heavily chained crow trembled in the next moment and collided with Fairchild's mental storm. Luo Nan's heavily chained crow maintained a defensive stance, even during the long standoff and exchange. But this time, under the intentional control of both sides, the offensive and defensive momentum reversed. The heavily chained crow suppressed the mental storm for the first time, invading Fairchild's outer control circle. The power of the format of my heart's a prison instantly took effect, sending the format's own order into the depths of this layer of waste heat. This could be considered a kind of blessing, just like it did for Rue 1 and ink. In this instant, Luo Nan's consciousness cut into the range of Fairchild's mental senses for a brief moment. He brought an area with a radius of 300 meters into his clairvoyance. The cross-section of this vast space was nearly 300,000 square meters. It covered the entire Frost River reality. The high-speed flow of energy and information converged with a rumble. Through a special configuration, the information was sorted out and analyzed. The layers were arranged in a clear and detailed manner. Fairchild narrowed his eyes and quietly experienced this marvelous experience. The profoundness was by no means a simple all-encompassing perception. Observation brought order, and order was truth. At the same time, observation brought pressure. Because Luo Nan had received Fairchild's mental senses and the corresponding information, it was like he had received an enormous chain hammer that spun at high speeds. His entire soul trembled violently. After all, although Fairchild's sensing range was inferior to Luo Nan's, Fairchild's level of understanding and depth far exceeded Luo Nan's level. This was rich nourishment, but it was also a difficult problem that transcended the class. If Luo Nan had not been in an out-of-body state, this attack would have caused Luo Nan to vomit blood and collapse. And right now, even though Luo Nan was in an out-of-body state, he could still sense that his soul strength had been stimulated. It had clearly grown again, and could not be suppressed. How am I supposed to go back now? Luo Nan's bitter smile had just returned when Fairchild suddenly took a step forward. Fairchild's snow-white robes fluttered, and he raised his fist that had been hidden deep within his robes. The fist struck straight out and smashed into the chest of Luo Nan's unconscious body. A mercury-like radiance surged back and forth between the fist and the chest. For the fastest and error-free novel reading, please visit Chapter 203. The instant Fairchild punched, Cat Eyes was like a big cat with its fur standing on end. Her entire body bounced up. Her hand was resting on Luo Nan's shoulder. The powerful shock transmitted from Luo Nan's body made her feel as if she had been electrocuted. Her hand was first bounced off, and then her entire body received the impact. However, this was not the most crucial factor in her intense reaction. At this moment, regardless of whether it was the encrypted channel or her own senses, all of them sent a sharp warning over. The problem was that the warning and stimulation were triggered from multiple points. They came from different directions, different intensities, and different distances. Together, they formed a giant web of danger that made one's scalp explode. It endlessly tested her ability to make decisions on the spot. However, Fairchild's punch had swept away at least 90% of the irritating choices. The only path was laid out before her eyes. Luo Nan's unconscious body bounced up faster than Cat Eyes. His body left the ground and slammed heavily into the wall behind him. He crashed into it with a boom. The mercury-like radiance on his chest rapidly permeated the moment of impact. It illuminated Luo Nan's entire body, and then it disappeared without a trace. Luo Nan's body went limp, and he sat against the wall. Cat Eyes leaped back and arrived by Luo Nan's side. However, she did not pick him up. Instead, she pressed down on his neck and pushed him down. She laid down beside him. The instant she completed this action, the soundproof walls on both sides of the room exploded with two bangs. A gap the size of half an adult's body was blasted open at practically the same time. Soundproof cotton, gypsum board, and other composite building materials flew into the air, forming a hazy, turbid mist of dust that covered most of the room. But very quickly, the dark red trajectory of the bullet cut the dust into pieces, and the special bullets bombarded the ground and the walls one after another, exploding one after another. The fragmented smoke screen and the strong sound of the electric current interweaved together, and in an instant, the interior of the VIP room was swept into ruins. It was easy to imagine that if Luo Nan was still in his previous position, he would have been turned into a sieve in the blink of an eye. The other person in the high-risk area was Officer Shui Weiluan. He had been hit by Fairchild's mental storm, and was sitting on the ground in a daze. He was doing his best to recover. Now, the rain of bullets descended and shrapnel flew everywhere, covering him within. Fortunately, Xue Weiluan was wearing the exoskeleton armor. Although he was swept by the wave of attacks, he did not suffer any fatal injuries. Instead, he completely woke up from the stupor of the spiritual shock. Relying on his instincts, he made a few tactical movements in a row and quickly hid in a corner, finally avoiding the frontal attack. The other people in the room were not so lucky. The two police officers who had been pulling Luo Nan and Cat Eyes had been passers-by in background for a long time, but they instantly collapsed in this wave of attacks. It was unknown whether they were dead or alive. Guoju, who was unconscious, was probably the unluckiest one in the first wave of attacks. He was hit directly in the back by a large-caliber sniper bullet. His upper body exploded on the spot, and blood and flesh splattered everywhere. He could not be more dead. The pungent smell of blood and the rapidly surging hostility and killing intent were like an invisible burning flame that invaded Cat Eye's perception. She was forced to constantly change her perception in order to eliminate the interference and capture valuable information. However, the problem was that the other party knew very well that in the face of Fairchild's shield of truth's absolute strength and unparalleled defense, long-range firepower could only be used despite its ineffectiveness. No one would come within 100 meters of it. This made it impossible for her long-range sensing ability to display its full potential. Instead, the target of this concentrated firepower, the ears of truth Fairchild, simply withdrew his fist after blasting Luo Nan away. He did not make any special moves, but the radiance around his body was as lustrous as mercury. Thickness could be seen amidst the flowing light. No matter what kind of bullet it was, it lost its kinetic energy before this layer of inconceivable light. The powerful sound and electricity were also blocked outside. This marvelous scene of completely defying the laws of matter caused a chill to seep through the gaps of Cat Eye's teeth. She felt that it was inconceivable. It was precisely because of Fairchild's dazzling performance that he attracted the majority of the firepower. Cat Eyes and Officer Xue were able to catch their breaths. Wretched cries, weeping, and groans could be heard endlessly from outside. Even though the majority of the players had left this troublesome place due to the series of unforeseen events, there were still some people who were either enchanted or watching. They did not evacuate in time. The two firing points of the Knights of Equity opened up, and the two bullet trajectories on both sides of the room became a human domain. Compared to the chaotic and miserable situation outside, the luxurious room was already in shambles. From beginning to end, aside from the initial 170 decibels explosion of the stun grenade, no one else made a sound. Some people did not make it in time. Some people knew that this was completely meaningless. There were also people like Cat Eyes. After taking 2 deep breaths, she poured all of her emotions into the encrypted passageway. You guys just let the Order of Justice calmly set up 2 firing points like this? Bamboo Pole expressed his helplessness. We didn't even know if they were going to make a move before. What were we supposed to do? Plus, who would have thought that the Order of Justice would dare to play this big? This internal strife is simply the tempo of a special warfare. He sighed and continued to report the current situation. Right now they are still filling in people endlessly. Aside from the interior of Frost River reality, there are also quite a few people who have gone to the top floors of the 3 surrounding buildings. All monitoring over there has been blocked. I don't know what they're up to. I just applied to the Society for the use of satellites or monitoring balloons in the atmosphere. But I'm afraid this won't be enough. Red Fox, who was wavering, had always been by Bamboo Pole's side. Right now he complimented and grumbled. There are also people from the Order of Justice stationed here. We don't know when they'll come to the central control room to fight for territory. Motherf *Kerr, is this really okay? Where are the negotiators from the Society? He Wayne gave a simple response. The 3 first ablatums of the Order of Justice in Xia City have cut off communications. We can't contact them. Zhang Yingying clicked her tongue. I remember that they are all on the secular side. Just nice. 3 buildings, 1 per floor. Suddenly, A strange silence appeared in the encrypted channel. A full 2 seconds passed before Zhang Yingying whistled. The people of the secret order really are all lunatics. Now we don't have to pick a side, right? He Yuan skipped over this topic. Confirm Mr. Luo's status. He's not dead yet. Cat Eyes responded snappily. She turned her head to sweep a few glances at Luo Nan's face. She added, his eyelids are trembling. If he's not pretending to be asleep, then he's carrying out shallow consciousness activities. Perhaps he's trying to comprehend the iron fist of love? Damn it. Don't make me guess. Cat Eye's answer represented the opinions of practically everyone in the encrypted channel. Although they were all surprised by Fairchild's fist, no one expressed any concern for Luo Nan's safety. This was probably the power of a lunatic and a fanatic. Common sense could not be used to judge this type of communication. One could not make wild speculations, lest one be infected. At this time Cat Eyes' eyebrows jumped. She keenly sensed the changes in the outside world. The attack has stopped. Did you guys make a move? We didn't. Zhang Yingying expressed her innocence. Chapter 204. That kid's surname seems to be Xue. He might be a disciple of some martial arts master. He's very courageous. Zhang Yingying had a deep impression of the young man, who made up for her mistake. Bamboo Pole expressed his agreement, but he quickly added, but he was too rash. He doesn't have much combat experience, and now he can't even lift his head against firearms. Yingying, go provide support. He Yuan directly ordered. Zhang Yingying shrugged. Sorry, I'm not that familiar with you. He Yuan acted as if she didn't hear this, and continued to give orders. After destroying the firepower point, advance counterclockwise and eliminate all enemy personnel with firearms. Don't pay attention to pure ability users. Bamboo Pole will cooperate with you. Hey, He Yuan didn't pay any more attention to her. She continued to issue orders one after the other. Bamboo Pole. First set up a special communication line for White Salt. Then, identify all the firearms personnel, and try to save the video. Bamboo Pole understood He Yuan's meaning. That's a good idea. The municipal government, and the military, have just issued a warning to all parties regarding long-range weapons, and highly lethal weapons. We're all enthusiastic citizens now, aren't we? Done. As he spoke, he connected to Bai Xinyan. Her wristband vibrated slightly, and a large amount of information flooded in. Bai Xinyan smiled and lowered her head to carefully comb through the information. At the same time, she raised her hand and waved at Zhang Yingying. Zhang Yingying, who had a stomach full of indignation, could only look up to the sky and roll her eyes. She turned around and snuck towards the location that the bamboo pole had pointed out. He Yuan's tone became a bit more polite. White Salt, you are responsible for bringing your patient out, is that all right? Bai Xinyan replied with a smile. Saving lives and helping the injured is a doctor's duty. But are you sure Mr. Child will like our involvement? He Yuan's voice became cold again. This has nothing to do with him. After a short pause, she said to the bamboo pole, help me connect a line. Following the muted firing of 2 long-range firepower points, many of the Knights of Equity's follow-up steps were forcibly cut off. After all, it was not an easy task to find a suitable location in the complex internal environment of the amusement park. For a short period of time, the luxurious private room that was in a mess was surprisingly quiet. Of the 4 survivors, Xue Weiluan was probably the one who didn't understand the situation the most. However, he was very conscientious and responsible. If this chapter is not finished, please turn the page. Now the police officers also have the most concerns. His gaze swept past the other 3 people in the room, and then turned to the unconscious subordinates outside the door. The wave of intensive attacks, just now, was mainly aimed at the SWAT officers indoors. The SWAT officers outside were protected by the exoskeleton armor, and their vital signs were still stable at this time. This was also displayed in his command data link. Xue Weiluan should have rejoiced, but when he saw Guiju's shattered limbs, and the 2 other policemen gasping for breath, he couldn't help but feel conflicted. Finally, his gaze fell on the white-robed man who had been standing quietly in the middle of the room. It was this man who had brought about a series of disasters. Yet he treated them as if they were nothing. To him, the concentrated shrapnel seemed to be just a drizzle in an autumn night. It did not wet him even when it touched him. This kind of monster should not appear in the world of ordinary people. The enormous pressure that followed closely with it would follow the slope created by the higher and lower levels, and crush the weak and confused people like a torrent, causing terrible damage. Xue Weiluan sighed with emotion, which was rare for him. At this moment, a buzzing noise came from the communicator. A somewhat hesitant voice said, "You can talk like this. The police data link isn't that easy to hack into, right?" Even though the distance was a little far, and the voice was too faint, how could Xue Weiluan not hear it? His heart tightened. "Leister, is that you?" Dad, are you really okay? I'm with Nanster's friend now. Everything is fine." On the other side, Xue tried his best to make his voice sound more relaxed. The problem was that no one knew a son better than his father. Xue Weiluan could tell from his son's slight breathing that something was wrong. What's more, the dog's tail reporting that I'm safe was a clear loophole right in front of him. Xue Weiluan's mind spun, and his hair stood up in anger. "You're here? Just based on your mediocre skills? I shouldn't have sent you to the dojo in the first place. Do you know what kind of place this is?" In a moment of desperation, Xue Weiluan couldn't care less about anything else. His roar rushed out of his visor and echoed in the ruined private room. Despite being separated by several hundred meters, Xue was still harshly lectured by his father. Xue could only shrink back for a time. Zhang Yingying giggled happily to the side. No matter who was unlucky, she was always able to find some fun. "Xue, did you hear that? Get the hell out of here right now." "Xue, this chapter is not finished. Please turn the page." Xue Luan's roar swept through the damaged room, with air leaking in all directions. There wasn't even a single echo, but Luo Nan, who was pressed to the ground by cat eyes, opened his eyes after his eyelids trembled twice. "Oh, Leister came in. You're awake." Cat Eyes was a bit surprised. "I thought you were going to pretend to be unconscious until things were over." Pretending to be unconscious was naturally an insult. Luonen just laughed at this. But he soon discovered that he was lying shoulder to shoulder with Cat Eyes. They were too close to each other. The two could even hear each other's breaths. It was a bit awkward. Luonen flipped over and sat up. This single movement caused the bones and muscles of his entire body to emit fine sounds. His body froze, but he soon relaxed. He twisted his neck, and the expression on his face was rather subtle. Cat Eyes was still lying on the ground. She said with a frown, "Hey, aren't you afraid of getting shot in the head? Didn't they all get cleaned up? The remaining long-range firepower points are all retreating outside." Cat Eyes felt that the two's current posture was far too awkward. She saw that Luo Nan spoke with certainty, and thought for a moment. She simply sprung up and glared at him with cold eyes. "How do you know?" "I'm fine." Luo Nan responded slowly. His gaze never left Xue Weiluan, who was on the other side. Xue Weiluan was already hopping mad. This Uncle Xue was such a calm and resolute person. He would act the same way when his own child was in trouble. This sort of interaction was indeed very interesting. "You're really free." Cat Eyes' brows furrowed even tighter. Luonen gave off a slightly different feeling after waking up. It was as if his crazy attribute had been strengthened once more. He could sink into a zone of thought that others could not understand at any time and place. The problem was that even if he was crazy, others might not be a fanatic. As soon as Cat Eyes had this thought, the fanatic, yes, Fairchild, who had been standing quietly all this time, moved. He turned his body and took 2 steps, immediately attracting everyone's gazes. Even Xue Weiluan temporarily stopped reprimanding his own son to pay close attention. Blocking in front of Fairchild were the 3 multifunctional robots that Fairchild had kicked to a halt not too long ago. Right now, they had already been baptized by the special bullets in front of them. They were completely scrapped. Even the system's self-checks had been suspended. Today is still 2 updates. The holidays are finally here. I won't say anything to avoid ruining my character. See you all tomorrow. Chapter 205. Fairchild stood in front of the 3 piles of scrap metal. Wherever his gaze passed, the somewhat distorted metal structure seemed to have been cut by an invisible blade. One by one they disintegrated. The 3 piles of scrap metal collapsed, revealing the figure of a person. It was Huang Bingjin. This brother had been unconscious to begin with. He was pressed down by a stretcher, and there were a few robots blocking his way. He had completely lost his sense of existence. Surprisingly, he had not died under the rain of bullets just now. He had only been injured by the shrapnel. Now he woke up from the pain and began to moan for help. Fairchild extended his hand. Of course, this had nothing to do with Huang Bingjin. In the next moment, a palm-sized metal box silently bounced up from the pile of metal parts and fell into his hand. Is this the storage of the human-faced arachnid? Cat Eyes swept her gaze over the metal box. It was hard for her to match it with the image of the human-faced arachnid. When that damned Guiju had confessed, he had explained the cause and effect of the matter in great detail. With Cat Eye's long-range perception, she naturally would not have missed it. Inside the metal box was the core object that had triggered this incident. It was the raw materials for the creation of the human-faced arachnid and the corresponding key information. As long as she had this metal box and used a special method to restore it, a human-faced arachnid could jump out at any moment. Even though it was just a model, it could be said to be a fake. It possessed extraordinary power and functions. The reason why the previous performance had been like a farce was mainly because the driver, Huang Bingjin, who was moaning and wailing on the ground, was far too clumsy. Fairchild quietly sized up the metal box. He was extremely serious and focused. Because of this, everyone present unconsciously held their breaths and focused their minds. They were afraid that they would alarm this person and cause some sort of trouble. It was at this moment that a voice suddenly rang out. Fairchild, do you not feel even the slightest bit of regret when faced with this masterpiece? Everyone else in the room was fiercely shocked. Cat Eyes felt a chill run down her back. The voice had come too strangely. It had appeared out of nowhere in this messy room. It was weak and sharp, like the hissing of a snake when it flicked its tongue. She had not sensed such a special voice at all. It had clearly rung in her ears, but she could not grasp any clues. The so-called long-range perception had become a mere decoration. In the encrypted channel, this chapter has yet to end. Please continue. Yuan uploaded a message. Secret bound first ablatum, words of Krite. At this moment, anyone in the channel who had some understanding of the Order of Justice's organizational structure was trembling in fear. The Order of Justice was a world-class secret order. Moreover, they regarded fair exchange as their core doctrine. When it came to oaths, they placed unimaginable importance on them. This was especially true for the secular side. Many of their core secrets and profundities were maintained by strict and cruel oaths. From the lowest to the highest, the overt oath, the secret pact, and the heart illumination were the witnesses, executors, and punishers of the oaths. They were also the axis of power in the entire church's system. Although the secret-bound first ablatum was only in the middle of the first ablatum rank, within the Order of Justice, the status of a priest was one level higher than that of the other members of the Order of Justice. Even a worldwide secret order, like the Order of Justice, only had a little over 100 members. On average, each large metropolitan area would only have 1 or 2 members. Therefore, every single one of them had the power to oversee an area. They had the power to take charge of an area by themselves. In terms of political status, the society needed to bring out the leader of the Xia City branch, Ouyang Chun. Only then would they be equal. But upon careful thought, it was not strange. This sudden chaos was a contest of power between the upper echelons of the Order of Justice. Fairchild, the Ears of Truth, was an illustrious powerhouse even on the world level. He was infinitely close to the domain of extraordinary. From the looks of it, the extravagance of Frost River reality really did not amount to much. It was just that the innocent citizens lying in pools of blood and the insignificant ability users like them had to suffer. Damn it. That's enough. Red Fox could not help but complain in the encrypted channel. This is no longer a problem of a city gate catching fire. This is simply a fight between gods. Normally, they can't even hide. but they actually ran into us with their eyes wide open. For the time being, no one replied to him because Fairchild responded, "No matter how exquisite a work is, it is nothing more than a toy to satisfy the selfish desires of a blasphemer. I don't see how it has the qualifications to be called a masterpiece." The secret-bound first oblatum used the secret technique of words of Crite, and laughed in a low voice. As for where he was, no one knew. "Oh, Fairchild, I must. This chapter is not finished. Please turn the page. Let me remind you this time. Your logic can be perfectly replaced by the scales of truth. Are you saying that the sacred object, that can bear the weight of the order's sacrificial vessel, is nothing more than a big toy to satisfy the desires of the believers?" Fairchild's expression did not change. This was not the first time such a debate had occurred. He knew very well that using words to refute En Wang was meaningless. "En Wang, you only need to understand one thing. This thing will not return to your hands. Your laughable divine replacement will ultimately become a meaningless dream. So you choose to cooperate with the Ability User Society." Fairchild did not react to En Wang's words, but all the members of the society, who shared cat eyes, felt their hearts tremble. These words were tantamount to the most serious accusation. A single misstep would be the beginning of a conflict between the two world organizations, the Order of Justice and the Ability User Society. Fairchild was too lazy to defend himself. "I only eliminate those who blaspheme against the truth." The entire room trembled slightly as soon as he finished speaking. The mercury-like radiance around Fairchild's body rippled and tore apart all channels of information flow. The words of Crite was also blocked outside. Fairchild immediately dropped his arm. The snow-white sleeve of his robe covered the metal box. No one knew what he would do next. However, the encrypted channel was in an uproar because of this series of words. Red Fox was the most excited. He let out a blood-curdling scream. "We've really been tricked this time. Fairchild is pushing the boat with the current. He's using it too ruthlessly. Eliminate your sister. Cooperation your sister. Can't you just make things clear?" Zhang Yingying had entered the channel a little late, and she had not looked at the historical information in detail. She was completely confused, and had the mentality of watching a good show. "That metal box is really crucial. I'm afraid there will be a bloodbath over it. The human-faced arachnid is hidden in this box. That Guoju came specifically to retrieve it, but I heard him say something about downloading it." Bamboo Pole, a technician, was more concerned about technical issues. He asked Cat Eyes, "What did that Guoju say earlier?" Cat Eyes shared her perspective with her companion. She happened to be in the middle of Fairchild and Guoju's conversation. Most people in the encrypted channel did not receive the complete message. It was inevitable that they were confused at this time. Chapter 206. Cat Eyes felt a headache coming on. This involves some complicated theories, and Guoju himself was muddle-headed. Naturally, some parts of his explanation were very vague. There were many parts that she did not understand. She could only speak in a simple manner. "I heard that this is the most successful experiment of the secular side's human-faced arachnid. If they continue to research it, their final goal will be to mass-produce it? Am I right?" "Hey, I'm asking you a question." Cat Eyes jabbed Luo Nan. Luo Nan was a bit surprised. "You're asking me? Who else would I ask? This is a serious matter that Fairchild needs to handle. You chatted so happily with him. Did you ask him clearly?" "There's no value in discussing this." Luo Nan shook his head honestly. His conversation with Fairchild mainly concerned the mutual interference between the mental and material planes. As for the human-faced arachnid exoskeleton armor, it was a simple structure on the mental plane. It was also a simplified version. It could not even be considered a soul configuration. How could there be any discussion? Cat Eyes could not help but roll her eyes. It turned out that this person had not come out of his mental state. Red Fox, who had been highly nervous and had long since been resentful, could not help but let out dozens of clicking sounds in the encrypted channel. In the end, he chuckled coldly. "Mr. Luo, young Master Luo, are you saying that our group of people took the risk of falling out with the Order of Justice And came here to support you just for this thing that has no value in discussing? Great. You really are great. Then we won't serve you anymore, okay? Red Fox swung his hand and walked away. Bamboo Pole saw that the situation was not right. He grabbed Red Fox and said, "Hold on. Don't be angry." Luonan didn't make it clear. The topic of discussion between him and Fairchild is a bit more abstract. It might not be related to this matter. So you know about abstract? That's why we accompanied him here and there. I've said it before. The goal of today's operation was unclear from the beginning. The responsibility was unclear. We rushed over here, based on the guidance of a mental patient. We didn't see the human-faced arachnid, but we bumped into the infighting of the Order of Justice. In the end, the main character didn't even make a move. We shamelessly went up and spent a lot of effort to clean up the mess. Hee, the henchman of the Order of Justice, the vanguard of the conflict. Does this name sound good? Red Fox was furious. If he had not been involved in this matter, he would have treated Luonan and Fairchild's exchange as a joke and laughed it off. But now, he and Bamboo Pole were in Yulon Hotel's central control room. They had already been exposed. If this chapter is not finished, please turn the page. The Knights of Peace would come over sooner or later. Conflict was inevitable. It would have been fine if Luonan had been able to clearly sort out the cause and effect of the matter at this time. He would have apologized and added thanks. But in the end, Luonan just said, "There's no value in discussing." Just how ignorant was this brat? Furthermore, he had a deeper worry. Up until now, the society still hasn't given a clear explanation. The experts haven't arrived yet, and there's no sign of any coordination. If we really discuss this matter with the Order of Justice in the future, what would we amount to? The first wave of cannon fodder? Or are you using him as a scapegoat? Bamboo Pole continued to advise him. You worry too much. President Ouyang isn't that kind of person. That's because you haven't seen what the headquarters is like. Or perhaps, do you think that this sort of thing can be controlled within the boundaries of Xia City? Brothers and sisters, do you still not understand? This matter has already gotten out of hand. These secret orders are the best at dealing with matters of faith. They make a mountain out of a molehill. Headquarters, on the other hand, is politically correct from start to finish. Right now, we don't even have a single piece of evidence. Don't tell me that we have to send over the call records to prove our own innocence? Wayne tried to advise him. Red Fox. I'm talking to Boss Luo. Secretary, shut up. Red Fox grew angrier the more he thought about it. He didn't give face to anyone. He scolded anyone who dared to speak. The encrypted channel became extremely awkward when these words were spoken. Red Fox made it clear that he only wanted Luonan's attitude. Anyone else who spoke would only add fuel to the fire. Luonan was distracted for a few moments before he discovered that he was being targeted by Red Fox. He wasn't really ignorant. He just didn't think too much about it. He just spoke his mind. The faith product he named the human-faced arachnid exoskeleton armor was essentially a simplified version of the soul configuration. With the live demonstration from before, and the wraith sign as a solid reference, Luonan just needed to gather enough negative emotions to create one on the spot. It wasn't a difficult matter. This wasn't Fairchild's area of expertise. Fairchild probably didn't know this better than Luonan. Luonan felt quite wronged for a time. But when he thought about it from the other side, he had rashly reported the warning of the human-faced arachnid. He didn't listen to Yuan's instructions, and headed straight for the site of the incident, causing the situation to escalate. He was indeed in the wrong first. Red Fox had faced many changes to the mission target. Though he grumbled endlessly, he still followed them from start to finish. Now he was facing a direct conflict with the Order of Justice. The danger was extremely high. Please continue to the next page if this chapter is not finished. He really did have the qualifications to get angry. Luonan didn't mind apologizing and saying a few soft words. However, he really didn't know how to respond in this complicated context. He looked at Cat Eyes, who was closest to him. Cat Eyes had her arms crossed over her chest. She had a cold and cynical expression that said, "Seeing you embarrassed makes me feel good." However, The index and middle fingers of her right hand were raised and hooked downwards. Her meaning was for Luo Nan to lower his head and admit his mistake. She had been sharing her perspective all this time. This method was more covert, making it harder for others to discover her. However, this kind of notification was far too vague. At this time, two good friends simultaneously communicated with him in the private interface. One was He Yuan. The other was actually Zhang Yingying. Apologize to Red Fox. Try to communicate with Fairchild. Ask him clearly about the human-faced arachnid. Say a few words to Fairchild. Put on a show. Red Fox is a grumpy person. Give him a way out of this embarrassing situation. The messages from the two were different, but the meaning was the same. They were both teaching Luo Nan a way to ease the situation. He Yuan's actions were consistent with her style. However, Zhang Yingying's secret assistance was a bit unexpected to Luo Nan. Luo Nan wanted this kind of specific guidance. He let out a breath of relief and obediently responded in the encrypted channel. I'm sorry, Red Fox. I didn't think things through just now. I'll communicate with Fairchild a bit more. Luo Nan was pondering as he spoke. Though Red Fox had said a bunch of angry words, there were some things that he could understand very clearly. Right now, the biggest problem for the members of the society was that they were unable to separate themselves from the internal strife of the order of justice. They gave others a reason to speak against them, but they did not have any concrete evidence to prove their innocence. Luo Nan thought about it a bit more. Though he already understood the configuration of the human-faced arachnid, it was all empty talk. If the society were to negotiate with the order of justice, the evidence would be lacking. The true and irrefutable evidence was naturally the metal box in Fairchild's hands. Luo Nan more or less understood Fairchild's personality. Fairchild had obtained the storage device, but he would at most verify it. It was more likely that Fairchild would simply destroy it. That would be far too wasteful. With this thought clear, Luo Nan spoke to Fairchild. Mr. Fairchild, if you don't need that storage device, leave it for us to store as evidence. Cat eyes, ? He Yuan. Zhang Yingying, ! Red Fox, F*ck me. What the hell are you doing? Chapter 207. The instant Luo Nan's words left his mouth, Red Fox was not the only one who exploded. Everyone in the encrypted channel was furious. You saw it, you saw it. The Red Fox shouted until the end and was completely exhausted. Even his cries had turned into moans. I knew it. This fellow is purely a scammer. What a fool. Zhang Yingying slapped herself on the face, feeling too ashamed to face anyone. Even if Xue Lei, who was beside her, looked at her as if she was a lunatic, she couldn't care less. How naive was she? Only then would they believe that the youth who was serious about becoming an employee could handle this matter by himself. Bamboo Pole, who had always thought that he possessed the calmness of a technician, couldn't help but say, in the future, it's better to let him use his pen and not his mouth. Truthfully speaking, Luo Nan's words just now really left people speechless. It would be too presumptuous to say that it was a request. After all, Fairchild had just expressed his attitude towards the secret-bound officiant, An Wang. That metal box was an important item that was not up for discussion. Why should he give it to him? A single mistake, and they would fall out with each other. It would be absurd to call it a negotiation. Right now, the Order of Justice's secular faction had their eyes on this metal box. Even if they were to start a massacre in the bustling city center, they would not hesitate. With this kind of determination and willpower, anything could be burned to a crisp. Yet, you actually want to take it? What kind of spirit was this? Actually, Luo Nan himself felt a bit odd after he spoke those words. He saw the reaction in the encrypted channel and knew that he had said the wrong thing. But at this time, Fairchild turned his head and locked gazes with Luo Nan. He muttered to himself for a moment before nodding. If you want it, here. As he spoke, Child had already tossed the metal box in his hand, crisp and efficient. Don't take it. Can you not be so fragile? Look, he's taking advantage of the situation. The encrypted channel was filled with a wave of rejection, but it was impossible for Luo Nan to slap the metal box back. He instinctively extended his hand, and the metal box was placed between his 5 fingers. There was a slight feeling of heat in his hand, like the heat dissipating from a high-speed operating instrument. At this moment in the encrypted channel, half of the people were wailing, while the other half remained silent. The atmosphere was like the end of the world. It was well done. If this chapter is not finished, please turn the page. Was he stupid? Hopelessly stupid? Luonan always had a bit of a temper. It wasn't that he couldn't accept opinions, but he admitted that his level of communication still needed to be improved. But what the hell was this atmosphere? As if the planet was going to explode in the next moment. The metal box had played an important role in the whole process. From the moment Guiju confessed, it should have been obvious to everyone. He took a deep breath and sent out a message in the encrypted channel. Isn't this storage unit the ironclad proof that the Order of Justice is researching and experimenting with the human-faced arachnid? Yo-ho! Does young Master Luo feel wronged? The Red Fox sneered. Solid evidence? Based on the external parts of a robot? Based on the one-sided statement of a dead man? Or was it based on the obscure communication between Child and the secret covenant officiant? Young Master Luo, let me teach you something. The words of Krite is a secret covenant technique of the Order of Justice. No equipment can record it. Luonan was baffled. He continued to speak in the encrypted channel. The society intervened so early. All sorts of monitoring, perspective sharing, and video archiving have been done extremely well. The entire plot chain is clear and complete. It is far too easy to fake in this world. Your ability user society intervened so early. You guys must have made arrangements long ago, right? Red Fox mimicked the words of the Order of Justice, directly making Luonan choke. Luonan felt that he was unable to speak, but he was unwilling to admit defeat. He ground his teeth and used his mind as the tip of a pen to draw a simplified 2D structure diagram in the encrypted channel. Although it was simplified, the crisscrossing lines and the precise layout of the graphics stitched together made the encrypted channel go silent. Red Fox was a bit stupefied. What do you mean by this? Are you trying to curse me? Luonan hastily drew the diagram and used the marking function of the psychic wave network. He used an eye-catching red pen to draw over a dozen red circles on the 2D structure diagram in a single breath. This is the energy and information storage structure used by the storage unit. It includes the simplified restoration technique. Many of the details involved are special patterns that appear over and over again. Are these the exclusive uses of the Order of Justice? Actually, many of these structures appeared in the configuration of Child's Shield of Truth. They were used as extremely crucial nodes, which was why Luonan dared to be so certain. The internal core structure of the storage unit is unique. If this chapter is not finished, please flip the page. Special craftsmanship in usage. Tracing back from this clue and combining all sorts of information and evidence, wouldn't we be able to seize the initiative and solve an ironclad case? Red Cat was defeated by this technological geek's way of thinking. He didn't know how to respond for a time. Bamboo Pole, who was next to him, was watching with rapt attention. He muttered, I don't know if this is the exclusive craftsmanship of the Order of Justice, but from the information I've gathered, there are indeed many similar structural arrangements within the Order of Justice's internal rituals. It's just that they're a bit deformed. Is it used for storage? Bamboo Pole was an outstanding hacker, but he was also an expert in researching secret orders. His words naturally held a lot of credibility. The group's attention was more or less scattered due to the matter of the structure diagram. Zhang Yingying asked curiously, Is this the internal structure of the metal box? How did the precision of your senses improve so quickly? If this is the internal structure of the storage unit, then it's the result of my mental senses just now. Then, with the volume of the metal box, the precision of my mental senses should be close to the micron level. After entering the encrypted channel, Bai Xingyan, who had been silent all this time, spoke for the first time. She spoke with a dull tone. Student Luonan, the burden on your body is too heavy. Luonan remembered that she used to address him as Mr. Luo. Was this a drop in status? He was stunned for a moment before he responded, "There's nothing wrong with my body. I just believe that this evidence is sufficient to prove the facts. It can be completely turned into an ironclad case." Red Fox slowed down after being continuously interrupted by these people. He saw that Luo Nan was still stubborn, so he went all out with Luo Nan. "Handle a case. What case will you handle? Handle whose case? Who will handle the case? The society handles the case of the order of justice. That's not called handling a case. It's called conflict. It's called all-out war. Young Master Luo, no matter how large the ability user association behind you is, it is only a loose organization of members. A single operation would cause quite a few people to run away. As for the order of justice in front of you, it is a world-class secret order with millions of pious believers and a handful of extraordinaires. Do you understand the gravity of this? Also, there's a common saying in this world. It's called 1 yard is another yard. The society can make things difficult for the order of justice. They can say that they are raising human-faced arachnids. There's no problem with that. But for the order of justice, you can't involve yourself in their internal affairs. This is F*King politics. This is F*King reality. Chapter 208. A string of cynicism and mockery was sent over. While Red Fox was talking incessantly, he made the same mistake as a newbie. He used the hexaear as a communication device. He completely forgot about telepathic communication and simply roared. After this wave of roars, Red Fox's mood did not ease. Instead, he became even more agitated. He smashed his fist heavily on the control panel and cursed, "Idiot." Even so, he still felt agitated. He tugged at his red jacket and cursed again, "Scammer." Bamboo Pole shook his head. He did not speak in the encrypted channel. He only spoke in a simple manner and advised, "Don't look at how he calls you mister. He's still a child. Also, Xia City is different from Hu City." Red Fox's expression turned even uglier when he heard the words Hu City. He swept an icy glance over. The only difference is the distance from headquarters. Back in the day, I ran out of Hu City like a dog. Now that I'm in Xia City, I don't want to become a dead dog and be casually thrown into some garbage dump. Bamboo Pole shrugged and did not continue to persuade him. This was because the monitoring system showed that there were a few unfriendly faces heading towards the control room. He sighed and asked in the encrypted channel, "The expected trouble has come. What should we do?" He Wayne asked him, "Can you confirm the enemy's weapon right now?" Bamboo Pole understood He Yuan's meaning. She was not asking about the people who were about to block the door. She was asking about the arrangements the order had arranged at Yulan Hotel to deal with Fairchild. Oh, this guy was more stubborn than I imagined. Big guy. The main weapon must be a big guy. Bamboo Pole was multitasking. He repeatedly switched the monitoring screen and confirmed the target that had already begun to be set up. It's very likely to be a sniper cannon. From what I know, many secret orders are researching a magically modified version of the sniper grenade launcher. This toy is much stronger than a charged particle cannon against a single target. Of course, the effect of breaking through the shield of truth is still questionable. He Yuan did not say anything more. She simply responded, "Retreat. Head for the preset rendezvous point." Red Fox sneered from the side. He made a look and no gesture towards Bamboo Pole. The corner of Bamboo Pole's mouth twitched. "You called them young master when you went against the order. Now that you retreated, you threw up your hands. In the end, you were still unhappy." In the end, Bamboo Pole did not say anything. He tidied up the equipment in the control room in 5 seconds and walked out with the Red Fox. The central control room was located on a floor close to the top floor, so no accommodation was arranged. If this chapter is not finished, please turn the page. It was empty and quiet. Red Fox also felt that his attitude was somewhat inappropriate. He mumbled, "It's already too late to retreat now. They caught the order unprepared at Frost River Reality, and now they dare to ambush us from all sides. Holy crap." In front of them, the isolation door of the fire escape was pushed open heavily. Nobody could be seen. However, Bamboo Pole, and the Red Fox were astute people. They knew at a glance that the intruder did not come with good intentions. They looked at each other, turned around and ran. The fine electric current of the electromagnetic rifle behind him was exceptionally terrifying in the empty floor. "I'm not a fighter." Bamboo Pole cursed loudly. Before the curses left his mouth, he had already pressed a special button on the flexible screen in his hand. The fire alarm on the floor went off, and several insulating partitions dropped down. The electromagnetic bullet left the chamber, but it exploded against this layer of transparent partitions. It only pierced through one layer before its trajectory changed. At this time the side door opened. Bamboo Pole shouted, "This way!" He and the Red Fox charged in one after the other. They passed through the room at high speed. They did not stop at all. They passed through the already wide-open window and leaped into the night sky at a height of nearly 1,000 meters. After this suicidal action, it was as if the two were riding on flaming wheels. They slid down the glass wall of the hotel at an astonishing speed. Bamboo Pole had some difficulty controlling his balance. He laughed mischievously. No wonder the Society's elementary training classes always use rapid descent from a high level as their graduation exam. It really is useful. Red Fox gnashed his teeth. It's true that young Master Luo the Trickster has finally been given a proper name. The chaotic situation at Yulon Hotel naturally appeared in the encrypted channel. Red Fox, who complained the most, could not be distracted right now. Luonan received less than half of the criticism, but his mood did not improve. Words were like knives. They did not cut the skin, but the pit of the heart. Luonan was baptized by Red Fox's political and realistic speech. He was speechless. This was not to say that he felt that he was wrong. On the contrary, he felt that the louder Red Fox clamored, the more the resentment in the depths of Red Fox's heart surged. In the end, Red Fox was not targeting Luonan at all. It was clearly the political and realistic things that he had always flaunted. Luonan was nothing more than a target for ridicule and ridicule. If what Red Fox said was true, then the Order of Justice had used this demon as a reference when the human-faced arachnid was wreaking havoc in Xia City and engaged in sinister research. Then the facts were right there. The irrefutable evidence was like a mountain. In the end, the Order of Justice could be easily exempted and even bite back. What did this mean? This chapter is not finished. Please turn the page. As for the veracity of Red Fox's words, let's not talk about the reactions of some people in the encrypted channel. Luonan's personal experience with the Bloodflame Order was a very good example. Emo Luon had brought the human-faced arachnid to graze and made a move against the members of the society. In the end, the matter was left unsettled. Back then, Luonan had taken over the human-faced arachnid's nest. He had taken great advantage of it, so Luonan did not think too much about it. Now that he thought about it, wasn't it just as Red Fox had said? Politics, reality. Luonan would not find it strange at all if this happened in the secular society. This was because he had a pessimistic view of the hearts of the secular people. But right now, the enormous ability user organization of the inner world, which had largely detached itself from the secular world, was like this as well. Luonan still wanted to carry forward his grandfather's formatting theory in the society. If there was no difference between this place and the secular society, how could he guarantee that his grandfather's theory would not suffer the same fate as it did back then? Disappointment. He was extremely disappointed. This was Luonan's current state of mind. He did not want to say much. He just flipped the warm metal box in his hand back and forth. If it was possible, he wanted to be quiet for a bit. But how could he have the chance to be quiet right now? As his state of mind flipped along with the metal box, he clearly sensed that there was clearly some sort of extremely obscure power on the mental plane. It was currently creating disturbances in this region, and the feeling was extremely negative. It was like a gloomy layer of clouds that obscured most of the pulsation of life. Luonan could feel the malice rippling through the void. This was the true means of the secular side. Luonan's hand stopped moving as the dark cloud pressed down. He raised his head slightly, and just happened to meet Child's eyes. Those gray pupils looked like layers upon layers of hazy dark clouds at first glance. However, The firm willpower was like sunlight that pierced through the clouds. It was hard to look straight at. Child did not know why Luo Nan was in a daze. His gaze still fell on the metal box that Luo Nan was flipping over and over in his hand. A moment later he suddenly spoke. We have yet to touch the entirety of truth. We are filled with anticipation toward its true appearance. Because of this, we are exceptionally unable to endure interference, as well as the blasphemy toward our pursuit of goals. The truth has yet to be seen in its entirety. I can only guarantee that the place I stand is the domain of truth. As his voice rose and fell, the light on his body flowed like mercury. It reflected a faint glow on the ground, and a blurry wave of light spread outward. Men are afraid of entering the wrong profession. Chapter 209. The dark clouds on the mental plane covered the entire surrounding area. They constantly disturbed and changed, attempting to attack Child's domain. Later on, due to the continuous changes, the essence of the dark clouds appeared. They transformed into sinister and fleeting whispers of incantations that appeared on the material plane. Words of Krite. Cat Eyes reached out and pulled Luo Nan back. Her expression was grave, as if she was facing a great enemy. The point of fire was blocked, resulting in a momentary disconnection. Then the methods of the secular side finally appeared once more. Moreover, they had already given up on traditional long-range attacks. They directly used extraordinary powers. This was not First Ablatum and Wang's mode of pure communication. The hissing incantations were filled with the power of darkness and cold. The lighting within the room had been mostly wiped out due to the shrapnel of the rain of bullets. When the incantations manifested, the darkness grew deeper. The little bit of light that was left revealed bizarre and dazzling scattered trajectories. It was as if the room had been warped. In comparison, the space that the light of Child's shield of truth could fill was limited. However, the place where he stood still shone with light. It was pure and clear. No matter how the incantations disturbed and changed, not even a little bit of it could seep in. Luo Nan's eyes focused on the pure and clear light. He muttered hoarsely, "The place where I stand is the domain of truth. If you want to believe in religion, you'll have to wait until you return alive." Cat Eyes tugged at Luo Nan again, indicating that he should pay attention to the encrypted channel. Wayne had already issued the order to retreat. Luo Nan did not move. It would not be easy for them to leave under the current circumstances. In the next moment, the light coming from the main door was cut off. There were two more thumps. Someone was knocking on the door frame. The force was so great that the entire room seemed to tremble twice. However, the person at the door did not seem to have any intention of deliberately exerting force. This person was not wearing any protective armor. He was over 2 meters tall. He stood in front of the door with his head slightly lowered to avoid bumping into the door. He was even bare-chested. His skin was pitch black and glossy. His bulky muscles were connected by tough fascia. They rose and fell with his breathing. He was like a standing black tiger. Just by looking at his physique, he was stronger than the already tall and sturdy Child. The person ignored the gazes of the others in the room. He simply welcomed the light from Child's body and grinned, revealing his snow-white teeth. "Mr. Child, long time no see. Oh, you might not remember me." "Baze," Child whispered the man's name. "Thank you, Mr. Child, for remembering me." The dark-skinned man named Baze addressed him as Mr. Child. His tone was polite and gentle, which did not match his appearance. "I've always been very grateful to you for teaching me when I first joined the cult. You were the one who taught me the stages of cultivation and the importance of temperance. Unfortunately, I chose another path in the end. I feel that the unrestrained, simple, and violent style suits me better. Moreover, my strength has not left me because of this." Luo Nan watched Baze display the appearance of master and disciple reuniting, but he felt an extremely dangerous tension emerge from the body of this dark-skinned brawny man. He could not help but ask, "Who is he?" "Black Tiger Baze. He's the vice captain of the Knights of Equity's Xia City branch." Cat Eyes extended her hand to support the crooked brim of her hat. She subconsciously made her entire outfit more neat and tidy in preparation for the upcoming bitter battle. Since there was internal strife among the upper echelons of the Order of Justice, the appearance of a fellow like Baze was not strange at all. However, the pressure of theory and the feeling of reality were different in the end. She needed to give Luo Nan, who lacked common sense, a supplementary lesson. At the same time, she gave herself a reminder. He's a freak who can defeat and awaken purely by relying on his innate physical strength. But there are also people who say that he obtained this ability through the Order of Justice's life and death sacrifice. In any case, if you were to pick the 10 people with the strongest physical strength in Xia City, Cragburst would barely rank at the bottom. Senior Giant Arm and Senior Zhongji of the society would probably rank in the middle. They rely on explosive power and skill to win. And this person can rank in the top 3 no matter what. Luonan went, oh. Finally, he had a clearer understanding of Baze's strength. He had personally witnessed the abilities of Cragburst, and Giant Arm Cragburst was someone who could remain unscathed even under high explosive incendiary bombs. As for Mr. Giant Arm, he was a pure martial artist. The power of his fist penetrated through the metal box and forcefully stuck Jack, who was in the deep blue walker state, to the spot. He truly did possess inconceivable skill. Luonan did not know what kind of style he would display when he truly fought. Baze was able to suppress those two in terms of physical strength. His strength could be imagined. At this time, Wayne sent out a message in the encrypted channel. Pay attention. Baze's physical strength is admittedly powerful, but he has never relied on his physical strength. As for what he relied on, Baze, who was blocking the entrance to the room, had already begun to reveal it. He took a deep breath and lowered his head slightly. His pitch-black skin was already shining with a glossy sheen. Pattern after pattern continued to light up. It was as if an incorporeal object was writing warped characters on his body. The light in the surrounding area warped even more fiercely. It was as if every character had ignited with fire, penetrating deep into his body and burning through the void. The hissing of the words of Krite echoed like this. Aside from the hissing of a viper, it was also like the sound of flesh burning. Yuan's interpretation was updated in a timely manner. Baze is a human weapon of the Order of Justice. Through him, the first ablatum can fully display the power that exists on the mental plane. So there's actually such a method. Luonan had gained some experience. This was a method of application that he had never thought of before. For a pure mentally enhanced user, this should be quite a decent change. It was just that the human weapon was not that easy to cultivate. Luonan muttered to himself for a bit, but Cat Eyes glared at him. What are you thinking about? Nothing. Luonan was more or less duplicitous. It would have been fine if Cat Eyes hadn't mentioned it, but her mention had evoked his train of thought. It seemed that the support he gave to Ink, Rue 1, and even Cat Eyes could be considered a transformation of this method in a certain sense. It was just that he was a bit more passive. A few thoughts flashed through Luonan's mind, and Baze took heavy steps forward. His robust body entered the room along with the darkness. The muscles on his body rippled in an orderly fashion, and the bizarre characters seemed to come alive. Every time they shifted, they formed a demonic and bizarre scene. It was as if dark flames were emitting from them as they pounced forward. The dark flames intersected with the area of light around Fairchild's body. In an instant, black and white rays of light fused to form a distorted layer of ash. Baze raised his head, and his pupils were like burning coal. His mouth split open. Fairchild, the truth does not obey your imagination. A bizarre noise seeped out from Baze's voice. It was clearly an unsuccessful harmony. There was a bizarre existence that was speaking in sync with Baze. Fairchild's response to this was a single sentence. Scram. For the fastest and most accurate novel reading, please visit You're tuning in to the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.